Commissioner Burling?
Here.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Present.
Commissioner Buder?
Here.
Commissioner Mickey?
Here.
Commissioner Montmorency? Thank you.
Okay, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we'll have announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have 5 announcements today. The first several have to do with the Carmel Forest Master Plan. We have been getting a lot of correspondence, so I just wanted to try to set the record straight. The first comment is that we'll be holding 2 steering committee meetings with the steering committee members and the Forest and Beach Commission to review the administrative draft of the Carmel Forest Master Plan. They're going to go through it section by section over 2 days. That's October 28th and 29th. These public meetings will have public opportunities for public comment. It'll be live on Zoom. It'll be recorded and all that kind of stuff. This item will be covered a little bit more under item 3, orders of business item number 3. So I'm just going to give it in case you wanted to leave early or whatever. I wanted to let everyone know up front. We are also launching the administrative draft of the Carmel Forest Master Plan immediately following today's meeting. It will also be available from the city website. We're going to post a notice about it in the Carmel Pine Cone and in the Friday letters. This will give the community 2 weeks, technically 18 days, for the public to review this document prior to the steering committee meetings. Again, we'll talk more about the upcoming meetings item 3. Next, I want to talk about some of the emails, letters, correspondence we received regarding CEQA, the Carmel Environmental Quality Act, relative to the Carmel Forest Master Plan. So I wanted to clarify two areas related to that, the process and our current status. Let's talk about the process. You cannot start an environmental review process until you have a tangible document or a plan to review to determine what kind of environmental impacts there are. For example, I'm going to use an example of a bridge. I've designed a few bridges in my day. If I'm going to design a bridge, but I'm not really sure where it's going to go, how wide it's going to be, what it's going to look like, what it's made out of, it's premature to start a CEQA review process yet. Once I have a plan, it doesn't have to be the final plan, nor should it be the final plan. Once I know where, how big, the size, the strength, once I have a plan, then at that point in time, it's prudent and required to do an environmental review under the CEQA guidelines. There was talk about that this process should have been started a year ago, and we disagree with that notion. And for example, we just got the administrative draft of the Carmel Forest Master Plan. Now we have a tangible document for which we can start an environmental review, and we are starting that process. But there's also some comments that this should be an environmental impact report, or this should be an initial study, mitigative negative deck, or the city is declaring this exempt, all of which way premature. We are just now starting from scratch the environmental review process of this brand new document, which is now at a level where it can be reviewed to ascertain the environmental impacts. In terms of, okay, that was the process. In terms of the status, we have qualifications from 6 environmental consultants. We do have a committee set up. They're reviewing those qualifications. That's in process. Once they've selected a firm, or we might need to interview firms, once we select a firm, we'll negotiate a professional services agreement. We'll take it to the city council to award them an agreement to begin the CEQA process for the Carmel Forest Master Plan. Once they have that, once we have the consultant on board, and this is several months down the road, then they'll review the document and look at all the CEQA requirements, and then start to make the determination of what environmental document is appropriate. Okay? So I think some of those emails and comments we got were premature. That was announcement 3. That was a long one. Announcement number 4. We are also receiving some feedback and public comments that any update to the Carmel Forest Master Plan should be provided to the public in a, quote, red line format, end quote, and to compare it to the plan, the existing Carmel Forest Master Plan. We also have some members of the public advocating for completely scrapping this new proposed plan and just going back to the existing Carmel Forest Master Plan and updating it, redlining, updating it, and making that the new updated plan. We got a legal opinion on those comments. There's no legal requirement in the municipal code or state law governing the format in which an updated forest management plan is presented for consideration and further development by the Forest and Beach Commission and then subsequently by the City Council. It's also common for a legislative body and for policy documents to include a tracked version which shows the exact amendments being made to a document. However, such documents may be amended and restated in full without showing specific track changes if the revisions are sufficiently extensive. In this particular case, we're saying we can show you a red line version of the existing Carmel Forest Master Plan. However, it will be a document all in strikeout. It's an entirely different document. We can summarize some of the key changes, but it would be very extensive. So I just wanted to clarify that we can proceed forward with, let's see, I lost my train of thought. We can go forward without redlining, strike out the prior version. Now, if the Forest and Beach Commission and our City Council make a decision at a later date, forget this new plan, let's go back to the old plan and update it. That's a decision to be made at some later date. That's not today. And that's it for number 4. And then finally, happy news. Halloween parade is Thursday, October the 31st at 4:30. I asked the commission their interest. There was tremendous, overwhelming commission interest, although no one signed up yet. It's still not too late if you would like to participate. The other commissions and council, a lot of people will be there. You don't have to be in a commission car. You can just attend and wave to the crowds, whatever you want to do. If you wish to participate, please call Leslie Fenton, the Executive Secretary, at 620-2211. 620-2211. Hope to see the commissioners there and members of the public. That's all my announcements for today, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Public appearances are next. Under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. Hateful, violent, and threatening speech is impermissible public comment as it disrupts the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements, then the speaker will be muted. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comment shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on the commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. Do we have anybody today that would like to offer a public comment? Wow. Oh. Okay.
Just a question, so this item is not on the agenda?
Only now the public comments are only related to matters not that are on the agenda. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ian Martin. I'm a resident. Recently on my street on Guadalupe, there was a coastal live oak that was removed with a permit, and I really took a close look at the permit. And one thing I think would be very useful to me as a tree hugger is to have just a sentence or two about why that tree is being removed. So just as further feedback, that would just help me inform my own understanding of what's happening in our forest. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commission and staff. Melanie Billig. One thing I wanted to ask you is you're talking about in the staff report about 24 trees being removed and that are slated for removal. And I was wondering if we could if the public could get a copy of what those trees are and the reason for their removal. Page 4 under Forestry, Parks, and Beach highlights. Justin, yeah. And then another thing I just wanted to bring to your attention, I don't know if you are realizing it in your own neighborhoods, but a number of trees are being cut down in the public right-of-way that are not diseased. And they might be kind of in a moderate, age, but two of them, one the block right straight in back of me, and then one a block up. Both of these trees were in very good condition. Around the base, there was no disease. No disease that you could see on the trees, and they were cut down. One had a little, problem with the lines. One branch could have been cut off, but instead, both of them were totally cut down. And it's on public property. And it really would be helpful if those of us in the neighborhoods where these things are happening, if we understood why. I think it was not the city. It may well have been PG&E. And if that's the case, what do we do about that? I mean, the city, at least in the past, has had some influence on these kind of activities. And Justin, do you get a chance to go out and check these trees before they cut them down, as a rule?
Yeah, I do, and I think I know the trees you're talking about, but I can call you.
That would
Let's
be
save
lovely.
that for your forest report. Sorry. I'm sorry, Melanie. We're not supposed to have conversation right now.
Yeah.
But we're listening to your comment, and
Yeah,
we
and
can
if
have
somebody
Justin
could just
address
get
it in
back
his
to me
report.
on how we're handling that
Perfect.
these days.
Yeah.
If we're communicating with PG&E at all.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to offer a public comment? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Not at this
Yvette?
time, no.
Okay. That will conclude our public comment, and we'll move to our first order of business, which is the draft agenda for the upcoming steering committee meeting for the forest management.
Public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No.
public hearing. I'm sorry.
No.
I apologize.
Meeting minutes.
I'm sorry.
Consent.
Meeting minutes. I'm getting ahead of myself. The meeting minutes for September 12th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Burling?
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Buder?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey?
Yes.
Commissioner Morency? Yes. Thank you. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Public hearings. Okay, the consideration of the stop work order at the northwest corner of Fifth Avenue and Carpenter Street. Justin?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this is to ask the Commission to consider the conditional release of a stop work order at the northwest corner of Fifth Avenue and Carpenter Street. The recommendation is to allow the conditional release with the owner paying the fees totaling $636 for the stop work order investigation fee, $1,364, which is double the tree removal permit fee, $2,838, which is the cost of the independent consulting arborist report, and $14,891.46 for the depreciated values of the trees after the construction damage. Total of the fees is $19,729.46. And the conditional part is this stop order release dependent on the planning and building department clearing violations on the site now existing to grading and shoring. The background is on August 27th, I was called by Dwayne Dauphiné, the building inspector, and was notified about a stop work order issued on the property due to grading in excess of 8 feet and within 11 feet of the property line that was unshored and unsupported, which is against codes. So he also informed me that they were excavating close to trees. So I went out there and inspected the property, noticed that they were within the allowable 6 feet of the trees and their sizable roots were damaged. So I talked to him and asked to uphold the building permit or the stop work order while I hire an independent consulting arborist to assess the damages, and we send this to Forest and Beach to rectify the tree issues outside of the shoring issues. So taking the recommendations, is this, Tom, can you put this over to the, do you have to drag that? Sorry, everybody. So in the staff report I prepared, we have, it starts with, oh man, you can't read any of that. The building plans, which were the original ones submitted for the building permit. And as you can see, it was a vacant lot with a moderate slope to the northwest. That is the proposed building. And those of you that went out there, you can see that there was no grading proposed around the redwood tree. Or actually, this is the grading. The redwood tree's right around there. But beyond that, I want to get to that's the arborist report to show the pictures to everyone. So the arborist from one of our contractors, West Coast Arborist, who's a registered consulting arborist and a board certified master arborist, went out and performed a tree evaluation using the Council of Landscape and Tree Assessors 10th edition, which is the industry standard, to get a baseline valuation of all the trees, what they were worth before construction based on historical photos and size, and then use the damage observed to depreciate the value down to get the change in value, which is the common practice in arboricultural consulting to attain the loss of landscape value. So he came up with one valuation for every tree, coming to that number of the assessment that I brought to you at the beginning of 14,000. It says 12,000 as the total depreciated value, but tree number 3 was totally cracked in half and will die, and tree number 1 was excavated very close to the trunk and lost a lot of its stability. So I'm recommending both of those trees be removed, and that the total value of those trees be assessed, bringing it to the $14,000 value. Here are some photos. That is tree number 1 with deep excavation, at least 8 feet within 4 feet of the tree. There's another picture of the excavation. Oh, it's really bad. Can we turn the lights off? Thank you. Here's another picture. The excavation wasn't quite as deep on the east side of the lot, but that is tree number 3. And the picture doesn't come across as clear, but it shows some green you can see, and it's totally brown now. And further complicating issues is 2 of the trees are actually on the neighbor's property, And they're also facing a loss in value because they were damaged and they weren't actually on the target or on the subject property. There's the branch tree number 3, the stem, and there's the large break from the equipment damage. More pictures, pruning cuts, broken branches, large roots in the soil cut. So that is, you saw it on site, that there was pretty extensive damage and extensive grading. And that's my recommendation, is to assess the fees and recoup the loss in landscape value from the property owner, to conditionally clear it, but only have a full clearing of that to bring the building permit into compliance with the help of planning and building, signing off on the grading and shoring issues.
Do we have any questions on the commission for Justin or city staff?
Yeah, I just had a question about, this methodology. It basically takes the value of the tree beforehand,
Yes.
right? And then it says, what's the value of the tree now?
Yeah.
And it takes the delta,
Yes.
right? And that's basically the
The
cost
depreciated value. Yeah.
right, that's charged to the. And I wonder, do we have any precedent for, because $20,000, I think there's people that probably pay multiples of $20,000 to,
What's the tree really worth?
to do whatever
Exactly.
they want on their
Yes.
property. And so I'm just wondering, in the past, how have we dealt with that?
There was, I wasn't at the city.
I could speak for that.
Bob would be better.
Historically, in the past, say, 5 years or so, there was a couple of cases where the contractor or the developer had, I think the commission at the time used the word egregious disregard for the requirements to protect the trees. And the commission did impose punitive damages on top of the assessed valuation of the trees. And those have been paid in the past.
And what was the amount of those,
The two that I recall were both $50,000 each.
$50,000?
$50,000. And I would, my recollection was one was a very similar case to this one. One was a lesser quantity of trees damaged, but the surprising aspect, well, there was a very significant tree that was damaged by a developer who's very well known and certainly knows better, and just seemed to have some disregard, at least that day, and really did some damage to a significant tree.
That was actually my project as a private consultant. Sorry,
was it?
but yeah, there was a very large. The rules, the report was not followed. They were given a variance to actually be closer, and if they did the right thing, but they scraped the site, and it ended up removing, I think, 100-foot, 30-inch cypress or pine. It was a very, very large tree, and it was unfortunate that the trees are just all gone on that site now.
In this particular, remind me how many trees will be on the lot that we believe will remain healthy?
There's 3 trees remaining from the initial pre-site assessment, with 2 extras on the other side that weren't assessed because they were outside of the building. So 2 trees are being removed, and there are 5 trees in and around. Only, I don't think any trees left on the lot. Maybe 1 tree left on the lot. The rest of trees are around the outside, on the neighbor's property in the city right of way, and 1 on the lot.
And remind me how many trees they received a permit to take down? Was
A cluster of 4, I believe, and 1 on the outside to build the garage and to facilitate the building of the house. And that went to Forest and Beach, I believe, in 2020 or 2022, a while ago.
and there's basically no trees left now? Like the oak that's dying, or that looked dead that we saw?
Yeah.
The other parts of that look like they're on the neighbor's property,
They are.
correct? And so is the only tree still standing, that beautiful redwood that now has trouble because it's...
The redwood, but then there's another oak across the way from it that's
Right.
still, that's actually within the property boundary.
And is that redwood is at risk based on how close the grading is to the tree?
Yes, unless someone could give me a reason otherwise. It's a little questionable with the fact that also there's not a lot of roots because there's a wall on the other side of the property.
Okay. Any other questions for Justin? Would anybody in the public?
Well, what about the person in?
Yeah, I want to talk to
Yeah, I'm gonna,
the owner.
Okay.
the owner and the neighbor?
Yeah.
I see the neighbor here. Is the property owner here
Yes.
today? Would you like to speak on the property?
Not right now.
No.
I want to hear more about what's happening.
Okay.
I have a question for Justin. What was the amount that was assessed for the neighbor's tree that was damaged?
Where'd it go? Tree 2. Wait, the one that broke in half or the one?
The neighbor's tree, the
So
two.
$4,000, $4,299 was the change in value.
Okay. And so
That's
that
tree
is,
number 2.
that's on the neighbor's lot,
Yes.
correct? Do we keep that money? How is that?
I mean, it's a fine. Yeah,
It's
it
a
would be
fine
to the
because they
city.
touched, because they damaged, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good question.
Would the neighbor like to speak?
No, not at this moment. I'm listening to this.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to make a public comment?
I'd like to say something.
Well, I need you to, if you're going to speak, I need you to come up to the podium. Thank you very much.
This tree you're talking about that's been damaged.
Wait, if you could just wait in for us, if you'd like to give us your name, that would be
Alan
helpful.
McDaniel.
Okay, thank you.
The tree that we're referring to that's on the neighbor's property, which happens to be me because I'm the only neighbor, this is the oak tree?
Yes. Yes.
I hadn't realized that that had been damaged.
Just the roots, the root loss.
Oh,
not
just the
direct,
roots.
not mechanically directly
I
damaged.
see. So I have to ask you, you're going to charge a $4,000 fine to her for that being damaged, and you guys keep the money. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Well, why wouldn't I get the money? It's my tree. I mean, is that a logical question?
That would be a civil matter.
I see, a civil matter. Okay, this is not a civil matter. Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment?
Continuing on with that theme, I think that's actually a really good point that people are raising. So I know that there have been other instances when the municipality has charged money or fines or whatever, and I would like to know what becomes of the money that's collected from that. It would be nice to have. I would like to have, in 6 months, a little revisit saying, remember back in October, well, here's how we spent the money, and we had planted in these trees, and they're in this part of the village, and you can go and visit them, and pat them on the head. So that would be helpful, and just as a matter of overall policy, having a mechanism by which the public can see when the city is charging money for these sorts of things, how the money is then reinvested back in the forest, and then the citizens can then personally go and just see where these trees land or end up. Thank you.
Can I respond to that one?
Sure.
I'd like to make a general comment regarding that. The money that is received from, in this case or any similar case, or like there's also the in lieu. Sometimes the developer, there's already enough trees or something, and the city forester and the commission say, okay, pay for one tree in lieu of planting another tree. Those monies go to the city in a reforestation account. It's not something we can say, well, gee, we'll spend $25 today to plant, do a tree. What we do is a part of the annual budget process with the city council. We can say, okay, for the new fiscal year, we want to spend $50,000 for some initiative, or we want to plant or whatever. So it's not like a cash exchange, okay, we're getting $19,000 today. we're going to plant 16 new trees somewhere else. It's not that straightforward. The $19,000 in this case will go into an account. Someday, go to city council how we intend to spend that money. That might be years from now, but it goes into a reserved account for reforestation. It can't be used for a fire truck or anything.
Justin, can I ask another question?
Yes.
Just to be clear, 4 out of the 5 trees are the owner's trees, and 1 is the neighbor's tree?
One of the trees is in the public right-of-way.
One of them is in the public right-of-way. Okay. So 1 in the public right-of-way, 1 is a neighbor, and 3 are their own.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dale Byrne. A couple questions. One, it appeared that that tree was close to the foundation that they poured or built. Shouldn't there have been a plan approved by the Planning Commission before this ever started, that they were going to have to work that close to the tree? And did that get approved? And I was wondering why that wouldn't have been taken place earlier. And if there wasn't a grading plan, why were they, this is a whole planning thing, you know, it seems that it's odd that they would have to do 8 feet of excavation if it wasn't required in the original plan. And related, I'll just give all my questions, you can either respond or not. And then the question from the owner with the 2 oak trees, wouldn't it make more sense to have some kind of a reserve account so that when her tree dies, that she does get compensated to replace them if it does die? Because it seems to me that the city's getting the money, but her tree's going to die, and then she has to pay to replace it without having a civil lawsuit, which seems sort of onerous on her. Just something to think about. Thank you.
They had a building permit, and I believe there's a grading plan. I don't know if it was followed to spec, but this went to Planning Commission in Forest Beach several years ago, and they had an approved building permit in hand.
I think wasn't the original stop work order that was put in place was a violation of the building plan, correct?
Yes.
And so there's been violations related to the plan that was approved, and you were called because
Yeah.
there seemed to be a violation related to the tree impacts also.
Yeah.
Okay, before we
Justin,
bring it back to commission, I just wanted to see, is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment before we bring it back to commission?
Melanie Belli, rarely do we see something so egregious.
Pull the mic down by your.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. Rarely do we see something so egregious. And so we should not treat this as just a happening. I mean, these people, both the owner and the architect, everybody has worked in this town. And to see what has happened here is just, it's really heartbreaking that people would flout our rules and regulations in such a horrible way. I find it really hard to believe, and I think this should be very seriously punished. And I'm glad that some of you brought that up and are thinking in that way, because we have to stop some of the stuff that's going on in town. And this is just one of the worst examples of what's happened recently. So I would just encourage you to really level a very serious fine on these people for what they have done. I mean, these are oak trees. They don't grow very fast. We all know that. And no matter whether they're the most beautiful sculptured oak in the world or just a kind of mediocre one, they still take a long time, and it's going to affect the whole look of that corner and the house as well. So that's about all I have to say. Lay it on them, please.
Thank you, Melanie.
Hi, Commissioners. Victoria Beach. I have a question for you to address later when you want. I've noticed that tree protection, at least in my neighborhood, doesn't seem to be inspected before construction begins. That has, I know of at least one incident very close to my house. That used to be mandatory. I believe by law it's still mandatory, but I'm not sure it's being enforced, so that's a question. Is it being enforced? Can it be enforced if not? I just on my phone there was looking up the cost of a mature coast live oak. A non-mature is $33,000. So I cannot understand why we would be lower than that number for multiple oaks damaged. I don't understand the methodology of it's worth a little bit less, a certain percentage less. That doesn't make sense to me. This is now an unhealthy tree. It may or may not die. It seems to me that it's appropriate to task the contractors for safeguarding the full value of these trees. And if they damage the full value of the trees should be replaced. The fine is a different matter. The fine is the punishment, and I assume that's the part that you're explaining goes into a fund. The other thing should be going into the replacement of the tree, whatever that value is. And there's a tool, I'm not sure it applies here, but this is my other question, would you all be willing to look at the nuisance, I think it's a nuisance notice or a nuisance order, that is a tool that is often deployed in the city for when people are either creating a visual nuisance or a physical nuisance on their own property or on adjacent properties. This has all sorts of legal procedures and has certain very strict timelines. It might help you as a tool to take care of when this sort of thing happens. I don't recall ever seeing that before. So that's a question. Do you use it? Could you use it? And then the third thing I'll say is it sounds like you're about to consider the conditional release of this stop work order. Seems to me like those questions I just asked ought to be answered first before you make that decision, so maybe you want to continue it. And then I would recommend that they have actually completed the task you have decided to assign to them before you do that conditional release, meaning whatever it's purchasing the new trees, paying the fines, the check has cleared the account, the release of other things that you are trying to get them to do. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Can I ask you a question? Yes. Hi, Victoria. Can you give some sort of an example of the nuisance? Is there something that comes to mind just to understand?
For sure. Sometimes it's really mild, like somebody just left a dumpster on their property for so long that it's like, oh my God, the neighbors don't want to look at it anymore. So it's actually not having it's having a visual impact. Another thing is actual damage to abutters, like at the pit that has damaged senior housing and the Carmel Art Association. That has created a physical nuisance and a monetary, in those cases, a monetary value to that nuisance.
Okay. So. And in this case, and in this particular home, do you have any thoughts about what would be a nuisance?
That they have damaged the neighbor's property and my property in the public right-of-way.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, would anybody else like to make any public comment before we bring it back to commission?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cheryl Hireman, the owner of the property that we're discussing. I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, the contractor is following exactly the guidelines and the floor plan, grading plan, and the approved plan, maintaining 6 feet or more from the trees and hand digging when he got close to the trees. We were literally in construction 4 days when this happened. That's why we have the other concern with the city that we're dealing with, which is the shoring and making it safe, because we had to stop work. And so we were allowed to shore partially, but then someone also complained to OSHA and they've stopped us completely, so we can't go back and shore and do the work that's required that we were in the process of doing. So first of all, it's important to us to make sure you understand that preserving Carmel trees, et cetera, are always of the utmost importance. There was no intent here to deal with the roots and issues, creating issues for the trees. I called Rob Thompson, who I think you've used as an expert in the past. He came out and did a visual when I first talked to Justin, or actually Jermel, and they couldn't tell me what the damage and what we were discussing. And Jermel was calling a second opinion to decide what the situation was. I have Rob Thompson, who's come out several times and doesn't seem to have the same characterization that you've presented today. I've also not had the ability to review or have any purview of any of this information prior to this meeting, which I think is kind of rude. Because this is important. I think we're talking where people in the public are saying things like, you know, just that it's over the top, intentionally damaging, et cetera, and that's not the case at all. So I feel that perhaps we can hear from Rob. He's been willing to and offered to come and speak with you or meet with you at the property. He felt, his opinion, this secondhand, is that the root systems of those oaks are not an issue at all. That because of the way they've grown and their age and the fact that these are not major taps, he didn't see a concern with any of those trees, that they weren't at risk. This is what he's been telling me for several weeks. He's been out there 3 times now. So, you know, we're talking about let's raise the amount, let's blow this out, cause more damage, cost money, et cetera. And really, there isn't an egregious act here, no intentional act to create an issue. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And we're trying to be good neighbors. We've always tried to be good neighbors. I've never had a property I've built in Carmel take 4 years to get approval, and that should be a sign that there's been an issue from day one. Thank you very much.
Can I ask her a question? Yes, I'm just a quick question, and maybe this constitutes a continuance. You mentioned that someone that you would like to appear if
we can't get this
if the
resolved,
commission decides to continue it. You mentioned that you were not aware of this meeting until today.
I was not aware that you had. Well, I've asked for I've asked Justin who came to do the second opinion and what information you guys could share, so I'd know what to talk to Rob about, what to be prepared for, and also what have we done. We've had a month of waiting to hear what exactly is the problem. I see that the roots at the pine or whatever, those are close, I get that, but we've completely followed the city guidelines and the plan.
I think my question, let me rephrase the question. Were you made aware that it would appear today, well before this week?
I got an email, I think Tuesday, that there would be a meeting Thursday with no report and no information and no agenda. And so I found the agenda this afternoon.
The agenda was posted on around Monday at noonish. Okay.
Wasn't
okay, so you were not made aware personally
Yeah.
that this was going to be here today?
I didn't
until you
I
found
knew there
out.
was a site visit today.
I think I sent it Friday.
Justin, can you?
Friday.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Can you
Yeah,
can
I
you
think it was
comment on
Monday
that?
or Tuesday.
Yeah, I believe the email was Thursday or Friday, or at least at the very minimum Monday. It's been a while. It wasn't Tuesday.
Okay, so if the city notified this lady around Monday, roughly Monday.
I think it was Friday.
Or Friday. Okay, so that might be a consideration if you wish to continue. Of course, we'd like to give proper notice to the person who's potentially being charged a fine. So it's just an option. I was just trying to get to see, is it reasonable to continue or allow her to have a expert witness or whatever she would like to have, or you can go forward if you wish.
Do you mind returning back to the podium in case there are any other questions for you? Thank you from the commission. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask the property owner?
I had one. I know that Rob Thompson was at the site. Did he not come to the meeting here today?
Well, I think it was Monday. I can find the email, but it was a couple of days ago. I contacted him, and he already had appointments, so he did what he could to come to the site,
Okay.
but didn't have the opportunity to talk to Justin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was going to try to reinvent the day, but he said it was a little too late notice.
Is there anything you'd like to say about, are you prepared right now to have us talk about this, or?
Oh, sure, but I just wanted you to know where I'm coming from and that this is certainly not intentional, and And we did follow the rules, the guidelines, and this other situation with the city is because we were shoring and doing the best management practice, and we got shut down before that could be done. We literally have been on that site 4.5 days of work, not able to do anything further, which includes you got a pile of dirt, you can't haul it away, you can't, do your work that you're supposed to do. So of course it looks terrible right now, but it's part of the process.
I had a question for you also, which is, it sounded like you said that the construction was following exactly the approved plan.
Grading permit?
Except that it was my understanding, Justin, that there was a stop work order based on violations related to the building permits.
That someone called and complained about the depth of the cut, and every 5 feet you need to step it, and that one side is almost 8 feet, so it can't be stepped because it's too close to the tree, the pine tree, or redwood, whatever redwood. So it had to be shored, and we had to stop work before we could shore it. Now, Carmel let us go out and shore that section, but the rest of the work we had to stop because OSHA was contacted the same day, and they said we couldn't go out and continue to cut and do the 5-foot benching that was the next step. So it's a process as you cut. It's kind of like building blocks, and it needed to be cut back on that east side to keep it safe at 5 feet, 4 or 5 feet, and we were not allowed to do that. So that's why it's not in compliance, and I'm working with Carmel on that.
Okay, so you're saying the shoring was not in compliance with the permit, actually. So I just want to make sure, because you're saying that...
It wasn't in compliance because we were in the process of doing it when we were stopped. We can't shore and keep working when we've been told to get off the site. Then Carmel said to come and do that section. Next day, state says we can't go back out and finish our retaining and cutting back. So it's just been sort of a few weeks of that type of thing.
So Justin, the question about the cuts by the trees, it seemed like part of the challenge when we were there is that the cutting is too close to the trees.
Yeah,
So did they receive a permit to allow the cutting that close to the trees?
I don't
Yes.
think so. I didn't see the plans that they'd be within 6 feet of the redwood tree.
Well, that's an important point.
It's a very...
No, he followed, we have survey markers out there. We have the grading markers out there. It's been surveyed twice during the process. And the grading permit, it's exactly what the grading permit allowed. So, I mean, there's no way I'd let them cut any, there's no way.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why she's here.
Marnie, can you speak to this issue?
Hello. So the 6-foot setback is an absolute minimum. This project was approved to have the house, like the wall, the building wall of the house at the 6-foot zone, but there is no excavation allowed within that 6 feet. So if during the process of construction, they had to over excavate and encroach into that 6-foot zone, that would not have been part of the original approval. So we include conditions on the planning permit that specifically speak to no excavation within 6 feet of a tree.
Because I read this, I mean, it's highlighted in yellow in the packet, right?
The
It is.
conditions are,
Maybe pull that up real quick.
Yeah, the conditions go further to say that if you're within 15 feet of a tree, you must hand dig. And I think what I heard Ms. Hireman saying was that they were hand digging. But yeah, those conditions are on every design study application.
And then I have a question for you. There was a comment somewhere in here that almost stated as a fact that we know that it wasn't hand dug.
because the roots are ripped.
So we know for sure it was not hand dug.
Yeah, I mean, I can't rip a 3-inch root with a shovel.
Got it.
A backhoe does.
Thank you very much. It looks like before we bring it back into commission, do we have some people online that would like to comment?
Yes.
Thank you, Yvette.
Tom, go ahead. Tom, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Right now. Hi, my name is Tom Stevens, and I'm the neighbor to the west. I've been watching this project kind of carefully for the last 3 years, and I would like to point out to the commission a couple things. When the original plan was submitted for this building, it was a reasonably sized house, right? And they requested the removal, as it was said before, of 4 cluster trees and an additional oak. But on that plan, there were 2 designated areas on the owner's property where they were going to put replacement trees. Unfortunately, when the plan went through revisions, all right, the house that was eventually approved was much bigger, and it included an ADU. And that eliminated the area for the replacement trees. So the 2 replacement tree areas that represented 64 square feet was eliminated. And that basically forced, all right, the trees out into the perimeter, into the city-owned property, which was already kind of loaded with trees. So now we have the situation, all right, that we have damage to 5 trees, all right, you know, I think if you were to talk to all the neighbors and ask them about whether they feel that this project has been done in a way that was good for the neighborhood and good for the developer, I would say I think the needle went way too far for the developer. They were given some privileges, all right, and they originally intended, all right, to have a replacement area, and which was eliminated. So I would personally vote in favor of punitive damages against this developer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Linda Smith, go ahead.
Yes, I would have to concur with Tom. It's a perfect example of what's happening in town, in my neighborhood as well. Over the past 3 years, probably 12 oaks have been taken down. Not one has been replaced. Not one replacement tree has been planted. An ADU was put in the place where a replacement tree was required, and now there's no room for a replacement tree. And what I think we're seeing here is, you know, the death of our forest by 1,000 cuts. And we really do need to discourage people, and we need to let them know that this is not okay in Carmel. We're not going to have a forest. There won't be any habitat for birds. There won't be shade. There won't be all the services that they give to us so freely. So I do think that we need to make it clear, and plus there need to be replacement trees somehow or other in that area. I'm familiar with that. I was a child and used to play on that property, and there were wonderful trees on it. But somehow or other we do need to change course and put the brakes on this process, because it won't be a good ending if we keep up in this way. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Carol, go ahead.
Yes, Carol Hall. I just wanted to say I agree with the speakers that have spoken up, and I'm hoping that their questions and their comments will be addressed and answered at least by the next meeting that you have. And it seems to me that people speak up about with great ideas or with good suggestions or questions, and it somehow goes into the ether, and we get caught up with other agenda issues, and they've never been addressed. So I'm really encouraging you, someone who has taken down all those questions, or they are recorded, and address them one at a time so that we can improve this whole process. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments within the chamber? Okay, with that, I'd like to bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Justin, I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
On the tree that is the city-owned tree, what do you feel is the condition of that tree?
That was the best condition. That one's really good condition.
Okay. So you don't anticipate that tree dying from,
I mean,
or
knock on wood, no.
from what you can assess at
Not
this point?
from this.
Okay. Thank you.
I had two questions. One is just for a, just to make sure we have a clear confirmation. So Marnie, from your perspective, there are grading and building violations on the site. Or maybe put more simply, the grading activity that's next to the redwood and next to the oaks specifically is in violation.
That is my understanding, but
Okay.
I am not the building inspector, so I actually haven't been on site.
Okay.
I can only speak to the planning process and how we try to set the project up for success.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. And Justin, I had one question for you, separate from the fines, which we'll take up as a separate matter. As part of the recommendation, we don't have any like tree replacement or tree requirements in addition to the fines. I'm just curious if that's something we should also be considering here.
It should, and I forgot to put that on there, but it could be addressed at the tree. They're paying a tree removal permit. That could be addressed at the permitting phase. After the fact, tree removal is conditional on planting more trees. I got to look at the site, see where they would fit, and how many we could put back on there feasibly. And if not, then an in lieu fee outside of the development for the permit.
Okay, it just seems like that might be a helpful, in addition to the fines, that might be a helpful part of whatever outcome we decide, right?
If I may, Justin, you could advise the commission a preliminary recommendation that the applicant will plant, say, 2 trees, subject to final determination of location by the city forester, and then the commission can say, okay, we vote on X, Y, Z, and part of that motion is plus replanting of 2 trees, subject to final location and determination by the city forester. That gives you some flexibility in the field. Maybe it's only 1, maybe it's 3. But
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, but at least it gives them a head start on requiring.
1 for now, because there are smaller trees. If they were larger, we could go multiples, but 1 for 1, 2 for 2 trees. Tentatively, depending on where the space is, once everything's sited out, and see how much room there actually is on the site. Does that sound tenable?
Yeah, I was just curious. It just seems like ideally that should also be a part of the
I'll do that
plan.
from now on.
Okay.
And Justin, I have another question. Do you know what the history is? It sounds as though there were tree replacements that were necessary initially.
I don't know the
and then an
history
ADU was added, and those trees were.
No, I don't know the
replacements
full
were?
history of the whole process. It's like, as I said,
Okay.
it's been a pretty long
It's been a long one.
process.
And so how many trees are on the property right now that we anticipate will survive?
1.
1 tree on the entire lot. And is this a 4,000 square foot lot?
That's the oak?
That's the oak on the south side.
On the oak on the south side. Okay.
Is this a 4,000 square foot lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so,
The
yes.
redwood's not on the lot?
It is, but it was recommended for removal.
Oh, I see.
She's asking after all that,
What about the redwood? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
that it was proposed for removal. I recommended it due to loss of root area.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's being recommended now.
Yes.
But it would never have been recommended for removal
No.
if it didn't have the
Yeah.
the digging damage right
Yes.
next to it, right?
And how old is the redwood? It looked fairly mature.
I can't, from the size, 20, 25 years. They grow up really fast.
Okay.
Not super old, but old enough, significant tree.
Yeah.
11.5 inch.
Yeah. All the trees on the PSA were qualified as significant by the former forester.
Okay. Okay. And so before this all started, so 4 trees have been removed and from the initial, when
Yeah,
we gave
the
them
initial permit.
permission to take four trees down. And there were 4 then after? Is that what we're?
There were
And-
2. There were 3.
Well-
There were 3 because 2 of the ones we're dealing with, one is on the city's property, one is on the neighbor's property. It's
We have 5
There's-
total.
there's 4
We have
tree-
5 total. One is on the city, one is on the neighbor. And so that's 3 more.
yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna try to
So
find
were there
the
7?
survey.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But you're exposed. That's up to you.
Yes, you may.
So here's the.
I'm sorry, Justin.
Okay.
No problem.
There's a comment to be made by a neighbor.
I have a comment to be made because I know exactly how old that tree is. That tree is 28 years old.
Okay.
I live in the house next door to the lot.
Mhm.
That tree was one of the replacement trees that was required to be put on the property. Why they ever chose redwoods, I don't know. It was an insane thing because they grow too fast, and I have another one in the back that's too close to the neighbor's property, but that's beside the point.
Okay.
That was a replacement tree, and somehow it ended up too far from my property, so it actually sits on the empty lot we're discussing right now. And so in answer to your question, or you didn't have the answer, it is 28 years old.
It's a
I'm telling you exactly. And I had a report done, I had my own private report done by Central Coast Civil and Structural Engineering, and I just received this yesterday, and I spent a considerable amount of money for it. And it answers a lot of questions that perhaps haven't been discussed here, and it includes lots of beautiful pictures, and I think this young man did a fantastic job, and I would be happy to share it with any one of you that would be interested in taking a look at it by either email or hard copy. I've got one right here.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So the replacement tree on that lot, that was for the previous neighbor?
It was for the trees that were taken down when my house was built.
Yeah.
Okay.
The original, originally.
So it's your replacement, or it's the
It was supposed to be a replacement for the house, for my house, for the lot,
Okay.
generally speaking, but somehow it ended up too far over.
Okay, and ended up on the
And it ended
neighbor's
up
lot?
on the lot, which has never been worked upon for the
Okay.
last 28 years.
Okay.
Because originally, that lot there was one house sitting in the middle of 2 lots.
Okay.
And that house was taken down. The house that I live in now, where I've been for 20 years, that house was built on one of those lots, and they used all the water credits, except for 1 or 2, for that house, leaving the lot with no water, the empty lot.
The empty lot, okay.
And so when Clint Eastwood dumped
When the
all those-
moratorium ended, okay.
And Clint put all those lovely water credits on, and then they were scarfed up
They
very
could build.
quickly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the story.
Okay.
So here we are.
So that's the story of that tree. Thank you.
That's
That
the
clears up a
story.
lot. Thank you.
Okay.
May I ask you a question about your report?
Yes.
What was the the purpose of ordering the report, and could you just summarize what the key conclusions of that report were? Is that possible?
The reason that I had the report done was to protect myself and my property.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Mr. Harari. I thought you were gone. You, yeah.
What did I do?
Nice to see you. I thought you were gone.
Still here, as far as I know.
Okay. The author, may I read this to you? It's just one line.
A paragraph, sure.
A paragraph. The author has reached the following conclusions regarding the condition of the subject property relating to the adjacent excavation with a reasonable degree of engineering probability. The excavation was at the limit of what is acceptable under the requirements of 2022 California Building Code, Chapter 18, Sections 1804.1 and 1808.7.2. See Exhibit 1, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the wood framing shoring of the exposed face of the excavation was inadequate to resist lateral loading due to earth movement under the requirements of 2022 Section 3307.2, et cetera. Okay, so, I mean, he put quite a bit of energy and effort into this. And I would also like to make a comment as far as the roots being dug with shovel. No, that didn't happen. It was done with a backhoe. And the guy that was driving the backhoe was incredibly adept, but he was a gunslinger. Okay? He moved fast, he moved furiously, and he wheeled that thing around like a toy. I thought it was quite impressive until he got too close to the property, too deep into the hole. I got a 12-foot trench next to my house. It's a little scary side. That's why I had this done, to protect my property, to protect myself, okay?
Thank you.
Because I'm not sure anybody else is going to. Thank you.
Okay.
Justin, were you going to give us kind of a summary of the trees on the lot?
I was bringing this up, but from the look of it, this is a really old, this is during the PSA, so this is at least 4 years ago. These were the trees for the building permit, because the driveway would come in here. I believe the ADU was somewhere around here, and then you saw the house, and then this tree as well. So there's a large pine that lost a big branch, and then there's two here. And I think that this says 30, but it's actually a cluster, and that's the tree number 5. And then that pine is no longer there, that oak is no longer there. It's a really old survey, it's hard to tell. So, but just this is what it used to look like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, I think it's sort of important information to know how many trees are currently on the lot. And, once the ones that you are recommending to be removed are removed, how many would be left?
Yeah, so let me go to the report again, sorry.
So was there a count, Justin, that you had?
Yeah.
Of that? I know we'll be down to 1, but what was it?
There's the lot. These is an old picture, because these are gone. And then these trees here, that's tree number 5 is this cluster. There's a large pine. So there's the one tree here. Then tree 2 reaches over and is on the property line. But it's on this side. 3 is in the public right of way. Wait, 2 is the neighbor's tree. It's hard to see with the light on. 3 is the tree that reaches over that was cracked. 4 is in the public right of way, and tree 5 is this one here. And there are some trees on the outskirts, but on the property itself, tree number 5 will be the only one left.
And the redwood is getting removed, and then is there an oak that's on the property that's getting removed, or no?
Yes, the one that was cracked in half.
That one's on the property?
Yes.
So basically there's 3 trees on the property now, and 2 are getting removed?
Yes.
Got it.
And just to be clear again, 5 years ago, how many trees were on the property?
I thought it was 16. Or
It looked
there were
like a
16
lot.
in the survey, but maybe some of those are in the public right away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Justin, is there anything that can be done to save that redwood? Like, does the redwood have to come down? It's just a question.
It might not. I mean, I have to take a lot closer look. That shoring board was there already. I couldn't see the full extent of the roots. It just was very close. And with the loss of...
Looks like 8 trees were on the lot.
So it looks like 7. on the
so
property?
cluster of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Plus this one that grew in.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, is that the, no. Yeah, so quite a few trees.
Okay.
The redwood, I really have to take a closer look once if I could look behind that board, there might be enough soil volume. It just is, it will always, contain some sort of risk with how close it is to the neighbor's property and with the storm winds coming from the south where the root loss occurred.
I'd like to ask the commission 2 questions. One is how people feel about having enough information to make a decision today that based on the, I guess, severity of the situation, it's kind of shocking when you actually visit it in person. I'll say that it's surprising to see, but I would just like to get a sense of if people feel there's enough information or if people feel like they need more information or more facts that would lend us to a continuation.
I mean, what's the typical practice for the city in terms of providing notice to an interested party in terms of timeline?
Well, my understanding, we did provide the required legal notice by,
sure. Of course.
So we met the minimum standard. Perhaps in this case, we maybe could have been a little bit more proactive and notified the neighbors and the owner a bit more ahead of time. The package didn't come out till Monday, regardless. Right. And in terms of, I'm not a voting member on the commission, but there have been plenty of times where a public hearing is continued. That's a common practice. This would not be the only time ever. So this would be perfectly fine and reasonable if that's the will of the commission.
Certainly. I just was checking if people...
Yeah. I had asked Ms. Hireman if she felt as though there were more that she wanted to bring forward. I think that's probably one of the most important questions, because if she has nothing more and this is all that there is, then this is what we have. Is there more information that somebody is going to bring to us to continue it? Or do we have all the information we're going to get?
Well, it sounded like she had her own arborist out there today.
That's what I had asked her that. Does she want us, that was my question, does she want to bring him? Does she want to bring more information? Is she still here? I don't know. Hi, Sharon. Do you want to?
I think just regarding the value, the assessments, his opinion is so different than what I'm hearing. I just wanted to make sure that that was taken into consideration. I certainly don't want a continuance. I don't want to be in the winter having bad weather and have all of the grading and concrete work going on. I want to keep it as safe as possible. So of course we'd like to continue, but I also think that if there was a way that he could have expressed his opinion, which is really different than what I'm hearing. Also, like the cluster, just an aside, but the cluster on that left side, number 14, is one tree. It's 4 small stems. And this property is surrounded by so many trees. It's hard to see this time of the year because everything looks kind of dead right now. But it has a lot of trees, and we do have 2 trees that are being added as part of the replacement for the plan. Just wanted to throw that in. So I don't need a continuance. I thought if there was more information people needed to make a decision, because it sounded like it was getting worse and worse as I sat there, I thought maybe you'd want to hear from Rob Thompson, but that's completely up to you.
Well, I know, I actually think it's up to you. This is why we're asking you specifically, because if you're not interested in having that, first let me clarify that the site visit, we are not allowed by law to have business discussed at the site visits. All the site visit is for us to visit the site, to see the location, for the forester and city staff to explain what the matter that we'll be hearing here in Chambers is. And so your neighbor to the north also came to the site visit and was interested in speaking, and we had to explain that no, we can't do it there, it needs to be here. So she came here. So I think it's unfortunate that Tom, who I think did show up at the site visit, wasn't able to.
It was all he could do in case there were questions.
Correct.
He can be there for questions if he'd been asked, I guess.
So I just want to make sure that that in saying you don't want a continuance, that you're comfortable with whatever the commission decides today.
As long as you have the information, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there was a bit of a discrepancy in professional opinions. I personally don't want a continuance, but I also don't think egregious fines and penalties are in order. I felt and thought that my contractor was he's a licensed excavator, thought he was doing what he was supposed to be doing and following, according to the surveyor, following the guidelines. Sounds like he's a little close on that one side, but he's 6 foot from everything else. And he did. I was there, he hand dug and didn't see any major root systems. They were all fairly small and then cut. So when he was 6, 8, 9 feet away, he started checking and then cut. So there wasn't a final hand digging because we needed to shore and step and that kind of thing. So if you want to make a decision today, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I just wanted to let you know that there were other opinions about the trees.
Thank you. I'm sorry, may I ask one more question? Would you be willing to have I'm sorry, just to use the name Tom because that's what you've referenced.
Rob Thompson.
Rob Thompson, would you be willing to have him come to the next meeting to share his perspective?
Sure.
I would recommend, if this is continued, that Mr. Thompson and Justin Ono meet and discuss the reports together first, so there's no minimize surprises here in the chambers next month. So that would be my recommendation.
It would help if you could produce a written document too.
Okay. I'll bring it back to commission again. Thank you.
Okay.
Tamara?
Yeah, I'm still not clear. I think it was important to ask Ms. Hireman how she felt, because it sounds as though there's other costs that come with if she delays a month and can't move ahead. Those are also costs. So it sounds as though she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard spot. So I was trying to gauge. It doesn't sound like she feels that we should wait, and I'm not sure if the information that I don't know if Justin, if bringing him back would change what the facts are. I'm not sure, because I know we have a lot of business coming up, so I don't know that there is more for us to hear. Justin might be able to give us more information on.
I don't, personally, I don't think so. I mean, I respect Rob a lot. I just, what I saw is pretty consistent with what the arborist report saw.
Okay.
And like I said, there were definitely ripped roots, and I understand kind of where the owner's coming from, but that's not what the code means. Hand digging, it means hand digging at 6 feet, not hand digging at 9 and then using a bucket from an excavator.
Right.
That's ripping roots.
Okay. And it sounds like she does have to replace at least 2 trees at this point, is what she said.
For the original permit.
From the original
I
permit.
believe so,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's still in place. Okay, just to get, that was more information, so that was useful.
Great.
I personally feel like we can start to discuss this, just because if she doesn't feel as though there's more, Justin doesn't feel there's more, if people have anything they want to share about it.
May I share something else, please? May I share one more opinion?
You need to pull the plug.
You may come forward for just a minute, yes. We're actually not supposed to do this, but given that you're a neighbor in this situation.
I am a neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
I understand. I just want to make a comment as far as Ms. Hireman continuing with her project. I don't see why she shouldn't continue with her project. She needs to shore up the side, and she needs to continue, because nobody is being served by a big empty pit sitting next to my house. It's hideous. There are mountains of dirt, as you saw. And the rainy season is coming, and the wall that next to my house is nothing but dirt and sandstone. There is no stone in there. There's no rock. There's nothing to hold that dirt in case the rains come. And we all know the rains are going to come, and the wind is going to come. And there's nothing to be served by not going forward with it. If it's going to be shut down, then it should be refilled. The dirt should be put back in that hole.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Chair, what do you think?
I think everybody's looking at me. My perspective is that it does feel like this is an egregious in terms of what's happened at the parcel. It's really unfortunate to see the tree damage, and I think I know the building and the planning and the excavating is not our purview at all. We're really dealing with the trees. But it seems to me that this might be a time where we would consider, in addition to the fines, also including the $50,000 punitive penalty that we've seen previous commissioners attach to these situations in the past couple of years.
I think actually they put an end to that, the city did. That they weren't happy with that, and the next, there was one shortly after that also. So I don't think we're supposed to, as the Forest and Beach Commission, put anything like that. I think this amount that's here is about what we can do.
Is that correct, Bob?
I am so sorry.
I'm sorry.
One more time.
Sarah was saying that
After that $50,000 one,
yes.
and then there was one after, it was 35 or something.
I thought they were about 50. That's my recollection.
Okay, the city said no more, that we weren't to put anything that reflected just because it was a bad thing.
The city code is unclear exactly the authority of the Forest and Beach Commission to impose punitive damages. If someday we will modify the codes, but there's two ordinance sections. They're both called trees and shrubs for some odd reason. They're both different. They're both outdated. When those are updated, it will be very clear the exact what the commission can impose. The precedent set to date, there's some interpretation that the commission can impose today. I think we proceed with caution. If in egregious cases, if the commission feels comfortable, they can impose punitive damages, which the property owner may challenge or may pay, or we go from there. It becomes a legal issue.
Two things. I remember distinctly they told us we couldn't do it again. Now, whether that's been changed in the government, that was, 4 years ago? And I think I was the only one on the board at the time. But the city said no more of that sort of thing. So I think we need to find out if that's still the case before we finish this, in that case.
Would that be going to the city attorney?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been there before. This is a recurring theme.
We haven't had a big thing like that in the last, after those two.
Years.
And that it hasn't happened again. So I think it was very clear. But whether they still feel that way, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe discretion is the better part of valor on this one. I mean, I know we don't want to wait with the rain and everything, but I don't know that I would want to. If there was some thought here about some people think about imposing a punitive fine without feeling good about the legal basis for that, maybe we need to get that opinion.
I'm curious, and I know that some others brought it up, why the values are so low for these trees when you look at what it would cost to, for example, to replace an oak tree. And, we heard $33,000 or various different amounts. I'm just curious how we come up with these amounts, because we're sort of being put in a position, because I think we are looking at the number of trees and thinking 19,000 for the trees really isn't a lot of money. But it's going back to the value of them. Why are we devaluing them so much?
It's mostly, it's the starting point we're coming from, that you look at the trees, even like 6 months ago, they weren't in the greatest shape, and there are smaller, so it does play off of size. But it just is the starting point. You look at 3 different limitations, the health of the tree, its functional limitations, external limitations. Is it the right tree in the right place? Is it the right tree in the right climate?
Okay.
And just how healthy it is. So you start off with the baseline, and if the tree is not healthy to begin with, then cutting a large branch really wouldn't devalue very much. So that's part of it. Because like when I valued the tree in Devendorf Park for the previous forester, when the truck hit it, it was $250,000.
Okay, that's very helpful information.
Let me just
Where you
add one
started
thing
from.
about the $50,000 one. I don't remember the second one, but the first one had 3 absolutely beautiful trees that were ruined by the felling. So it's way different than what we're seeing here.
Yeah, that's helpful information. Okay.
I mean, I think
Well,
a key part of this discussion is, you know, would we want to go in that direction? And again, like it feels strange to sit here and have us not be sure of our legal footing to do so and make a decision.
I think with that additional information, what I personally would feel comfortable with are the fines that we've discussed, the 19,000, and making sure that we have enough trees that we're having them replace. So those are probably my 2 key points, considering now what you've just said about the condition of the trees prior to the damage, and that you felt that the city-owned tree would survive and would be okay, and that we just replace with enough trees, you know, that we feel are necessary for replacement. I'm comfortable with something along those lines.
I think I worry a bit that you know, $20,000 in the scheme of like a $4 million house. I wonder if it just creates like an incentive, you know, for someone, or that the incentives get kind of misaligned, you know, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be interested in telling their excavator, and I'm not saying that that's what happened here at all, but just in terms of thinking about the future, hey, you know, get a little close to that tree, and then they'll put in a replacement tree. So I wonder a little bit about that aspect of it. You know, this is not a discussion about, you know, how many trees we think we should have on a lot. It's just, you know, these are the rules we have now, and you know, we're supposed to make sure that the incentives are aligned appropriately. So I don't know. It makes me a little nervous.
I
think we certainly have the ability to act on city staff's recommendation in terms of as put forward to us today. I would hope that as we get into perhaps some of the discussion on our forest master plan, that we could consider how do we work with the city on imposing significant punitive fines for people who take actions that go beyond what they've been authorized to do on the lot, right? Because I concur that if you go to the lot and you see the lot, it's beyond the trees that were authorized to be removed. You know, there's several other trees being impacted to the point where they're going to need to be taken down. including the redwood, right, which is a beautiful tree, and an oak that's not going to live, and a neighbor's trees are being impacted that right now they're not being recommended for removal, but it's uncertain as to what the impacts on those trees will be
You never know
at
till
this
down
point,
the line.
right? So it seems the tree impacts are significantly beyond what was approved and whatever the permitting process was many years ago. And I agree with you, Hans, that it feels like the cost of that is misaligned with the impacts.
I do too, and that's, I mean, we're working in the system we have, the ordinances we have, and I've had many serious conversations with the planners, and we've been brainstorming, but, you know, the rules are the rules, and eventually we would like to fix it. I don't know how we fix it with property values aligned where they are. The trees are never gonna match up with that in terms of, I mean, you know, charging people millions. You can't charge people if the tree disappears, the potential gain in property value is just really hard to balance with the value of a tree.
But you have shared that other jurisdictions do things differently,
Exactly,
right?
they
And
do.
so there are jurisdictions that require deposits prior to construction, that require very large deposits.
Posting bonds, something,
Right,
yeah.
but prior to construction relative to trees that could be on their property, right? So maybe there are things that we can't do today, but certainly I think this should be a consideration when we think about protecting our forest and protecting the canopy.
Oh, yeah.
That would be quite relevant to be included in the forest master plan. We've talked about how we'll have a forest master plan followed by potential municipal code actions, right? That will be the sequence.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason that in the forest master plan that this can't be something that we include or address or a topic.
Yeah, construction needs to be definitely addressed with how much it's speeding up, you know, and who knows for how much longer, next 10, 15 years, it's just gonna increase.
In your opinion, was the redwood the main tree, and now we found out that the tree is on that lot, but perhaps wasn't supposed to even be on that lot? It sounds as though that's a little bit of a tricky one. But that is the only tree out of the trees on the lot that you felt that was a thriving tree. My impression was that the other ones, because I agree with this, that we don't want for builders to come and just, I only had to pay a $20,000 fine, and, you know, I got this, you know, this house that's this and that and the other. We don't want that. But the reason I said that for this specific one was my impression was those trees weren't in very good condition. They were still trees, but I saw them, I had a harder time seeing them, I think, than some, because the site is you had to traverse to get over there. And so I could be missing something, but it sounds as though in trying to take what the homeowner and what the neighbor's saying and trying to work with what we have right now, how can we move forward? It sounds as though they want to get moving. What can we do with what we have right now?
Yeah, I think that's what I tried to present, you know.
Yeah.
Straightforward, you know, reasonable recommendation, just because I know too, you know, we don't want a giant pit in the ground. We have enough of those, and then we don't want the rainy season to come. I just want to get everything resolved, because, you know, they want to get back to work. We want there to be, you know, not a bunch of dirt dug up. We want to have if we're going to have a house there, we want to build the house, don't have an eyesore coming into town. And we just want to, you know, they started the process, and we want them to move along and do what's necessary.
Is there a way, Bob, to go with what we have here, with the idea that there is still a pending further fee that would be charged if if the city is saying we can do this, because.
You can make a motion to impose the recommended requirements. I would caution against a future other assessment, unless it can be well defined at this point. But you could do, the additional two trees I think we talked about, to be, the exact number to be determined in the field with the forester. But I would not recommend a motion with a unknown additional sum.
And we can put a big ad in the pine cone saying we're changing.
Could you make a motion subject to a positive opinion from the city attorney?
If you were to do that, I would recommend that there's a continuance. We come back next month with more specific information.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
I think the choice is, it looks like the choice we have before us is to support a motion that, that's in favor of the city's recommendation with the city's fines as presently defined, or to take a continuance to wait for an opinion from the city attorney on the ability to impose a punitive fine in addition to those fees, and that we would just take that up as a matter of course in the next meeting. Or
Could we?
Sooner. I wonder if we could do it sooner.
Could we discuss it now and have a special meeting?
Yeah.
Just, get the discussion all done, and then.
So we have a.
We might have the discussion now, and people could say, "Hey, we don't want to do a punitive fine." In which case,
we will be posting a public meeting for the October 28th and 29th. I believe.
Perhaps we could address
We'll check with the city clerk, but I believe we could have an agenda item number 1, like part 2 of this public hearing, and then move into the Carmel Forest Master Plan. So that's an option.
That sounds like that might be a good option.
That would be
Would people?
As long as it doesn't rain first.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Did you have something to say, Justin?
It just seems like that would put a lot of pressure on that meeting that's already going to be kind of tight and bursting at the seams. Yeah, especially we're intending a lot of public comment at that meeting, and I just
Dale? Yeah, I just asked Dale to come up.
As a former builder of houses here, I have one other idea. Is it possible, Bob, that they could release the project to continue, but keep the discussion of fines and the tree issues open for a continuation or a special meeting, so that they can get the project moving? In other words, turn it over to Jamel to do his thing, but the tree stuff is still hanging out there. Just suggestion.
I think that would be a continuance.
Yeah.
That's the
So that
same
would
as
be
a
a continuation.
continuance.
You don't think we could do something, say they can go ahead and build, but
No, you can't make a
they
decision.
still have a red
Commission
tag
can't make a
from
decision and then say,
grading.
oh, wait, we have the right to make another decision.
You can't hold just the punitive fine. You couldn't charge them the 19,000 plus and say, give a motion for that right now, and that will lift the stop order, but that there may be a fine that will also be imposed, and that will be decided at a later time. Oh, I know we've done some dual things like that before, where we, just curious, if that's possible. Just to get,
I wonder how much the city attorney makes.
I don't know, but he's been
busy.
billing a lot of hours for this committee this past week. Trust me, because I've had a lot of conversation with him. Not on
The
this.
safe bet is to stick with the staff's recommendation and add additional trees. That's the safe bet.
Okay.
And if we continue it, whether it's the October meeting, November meeting, or late special meeting, or November, there's no guarantee that the city attorney will say, yes, you have, the commission has that authority. Because frankly, the code is a bit unclear,
Okay.
as it has been in the past.
Justin just left. I was just going to ask him how many trees he would recommend. I know there's 2 right now, but I'd like to hear what his recommendation is when he returns.
I think this is a really important topic for our discussion, not this particular case, but I think this is a really important topic for our meeting on the 28th and 29th. And that if there is not a section that appropriately addresses this in the draft plan now, there needs to be one. And that we have the ability to then implement codes that would assess fines for people who take actions beyond what's authorized and what's permitted.
But now we have to sell this one, so going with the current thing.
Right, I just think we're waiting for Justin. I think Tamara had a question before she makes a motion.
What was your question?
My question was, we were just informed that there's 2 replacement trees that she's required to put on to the property. I just wanted to get Justin's feedback, if he felt as though that were an appropriate number of trees, or what his suggestion, because there will only be 1 tree.
Those were previously in the original plan, I think, right?
Yeah, and Ms. Hireman just said that she has to replant 2.
So
I
there
have
is
one other question that I think we have the authority to add on, which is it possible to assess what would it cost the city to support the health of the oak trees that are damaged on the neighbor's property, such that we could hope to minimize that? I don't know what would be required.
Do we get involved in that, or is that civil?
I don't think so.
We cannot
that's civil.
get ourselves in between 2
Yeah.
private
No, I'm not talking
properties.
about getting between property owners, but just, is there anything that the city would recommend for the health of that tree?
We can provide professional advice from the arborist or whoever, but we cannot provide monetary public funds to a particular private individual.
Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question for you, Justin. So Ms. Hireman had mentioned that she has to replace 2 trees as of right now. That was new information, good information for us.
Yes.
Is that what you would recommend, or what would you recommend for that lot size, considering there will only be 1 remaining tree potentially?
That's why I said I 2 to start, and to see what it's going to look like once there's a building there. It's almost like that needs to be at the landscape phase. I feel like at minimum 2, maybe 3, that would bring it up to density.
But now we have more that have just died, or that will be dying and that will be removed. So, because that was prior to what's going on right now. So it sounds as though, 1, 2, 3 trees are going to be removed?
2.
2?
So my understanding was
And
Is that a 40
the 2
by
oaks up
100 lot?
front, the 2 oaks up front, right? Are there 2 oaks up front and then the redwood? Or one oak up front and 1 redwood?
One at the north, at the northeast corner of the lot, and the redwood. That's all.
So just 2?
Just 2.
Okay. So maybe 2 more, because she had 2 as it was when they were all alive.
That would put it at 5, and the recommended density is 4.
I think that's something
maybe
we're going
3.
to have to look at anyway, because when it was agreed that they wanted recommending 4 on a 40 by 100 lot, houses were smaller then.
Sarah, can you speak in the mic a little better?
Okay. So I think that's stretching it. I think that's something we're going to have to deal with in this next meeting too.
Okay. I'm just wondering if in the course of this motion, do we just leave it, we're taking 2 trees out and we're looking just at the fine at this point, and no additional trees to replace those 2 trees?
Well, this is actually, so there's 3 trees on the lot, right?
Right.
The forester's recommending we remove 2 of the trees because of, damage. So that gets you down to 1 tree. And what I heard the owner say was that in the original plan, there's already a commitment to add 2 more. So that gets you to 3, right? And so
you could condition 1 more tentatively to bring it up to recommended density at 4.
I think that's one of the things we really need to talk about in the new requirements.
But we're not there yet. So this was just bringing it home here. What do we?
You're fine.
Well, it's a recommendation. Let's be clear, the 4 is a recommendation, it's not a requirement.
I think, I think we're hearing from our community that we're taking trees out and we're not replacing them. And so I'm just trying to sort of, we're about to take out two more trees. So it was 2 with what she currently had. And now 2 of those are going to go.
So add 2 more.
No, she had 2 that she had to add because of some prior to this, prior to these trees being damaged, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then she's put the,
But those were already proposed for replacement as mitigation for the building permit.
In the beginning, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, I might be misunderstanding this. It was 2 when all of her trees were fine. And now they're not. And we're going to leave it at 2, or do we add 1 more? Do we add 2 more? That was my question.
1 more would
Justin mentioned
It's going to be
one
at 3.
would bring it to 4.
It'd be at 3
It's going to be
now.
at 3 right now. There's
And
going
then
to
if
be
you-
1 tree left. There's already a commitment to add 2.
That's what I'm saying.
If you add 1 more,
That's
it
fine.
would
One more
bring
would
it
be
to
4.
the recommended density.
But there's going to be 1 tree left, but she got the 2 trees when she had 3 that were still, we thought,
Oh,
fine.
I see what you're saying.
So now we don't.
That was actually one of my questions. Was
Yeah.
it sounds like the original plan was there was going to be 5 trees
The
on
original,
lot.
that was what it
I
sounded
see
like.
what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. So now do we bring it to 4? I mean, is there some, if we're talking about penalties, we've talked about things like we want to, discourage this kind of thing. So do we make sure we're at least up to what the code is right now, which is
it's not
4?
code.
It's not
Or
code.
whatever the,
Yeah.
okay.
It
I'm
sounds
just
like,
saying because there is a lot of feedback of, 1,000 cuts, yeah.
if
Okay.
we're not going to assess punitive damages, I think at a minimum, we can recommend that she replace the 2 trees that are going to have to be removed as a result of the damage it recently committed, personally.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't have a, I don't have a problem with.
2 in total or
No,
2 more?
two to replace the 2 that are coming down.
So 5 total
In
after the
addition to
after the
whatever
construction.
is approved in the plan is approved in the plan. I think my sense is if we're not able to assess, we don't feel confident that we have the authority to assess punitive damages, which if we did, I would think that would be a good approach. But and being uncertain about that, their 2 trees have been irreparably damaged by recent activity at the site, and the fines plus the replacement of those 2 trees, to me, seems a reasonable proposal.
So you're saying leave it at the 2 that were previously set up, just?
No.
Or
I'm
2
saying
more?
the 2 trees.
So 5 total is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, but I'm not worried about the total so much
I'm
as I
just
am
trying to work
about.
with, we have a lot of different variables. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Do you mean the 2 before or 2 now plus 2 more?
The 2 that she has as a requirement presently.
That we just found out
remain
about.
in place. That has to do with the building plan
Correct.
and what has already, the property owner has already agreed with the
Right.
building, right? The 2 I'm talking about are the 2 that need to be replaced for the 2 that have just been damaged, that now have to also come down.
Correct. That's what I was trying to say. Do we want to give 2 more or 1 more is what I was trying to.
But if the 2 were still there and healthy, and then the plan shows for 2 more, is that it? So then there would be how many on the lot?
5.
Okay.
Are you replacing like for like? Can you specify the canopy?
Yeah, it'd be 1 upper, 1 lower, if that's those 2 that are coming out.
Okay.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
We're hearing from Mr. Montmorency.
Thank you.
I want to move that at least one of those is an upper canopy replacement.
So you didn't make the
Does your motion include anything about any fines here?
I think on that we can't go there.
Your motion is to say, your motion is to impose the total fee of $19,729.
Yes, and the
Yes.
replacement, and we had 2
Replacement.
additional replacements for those we're taking out, and one of those will be an upper canopy tree at
Right,
least.
1 lower, right?
Is there a second on that motion?
I can't.
I'm just going to say I do think I do think it's important. My gut reaction is still like when I look at that lot, I do kind of worry about the incentives, for 20 grand. So I'm uncomfortable with that, but, we have to go with the rules that are in place. I wonder, I'll go, it sounds like the group is leaning towards, making the decision now and then addressing it in the forest master plan.
You can specify mature trees, sorry to blurt out, that, which you haven't specified yet.
Right. So, I think going forward, like you said, Kelly, it's just something we have to, address. Because especially when you get to those really egregious situations, right? It's like you've got to have some deterrent power.
I personally would have been happy with a continuance to explore that further, is whether or not, so that we were acting within the absolute full possible authority of the commission. Personally, I appreciate that we need to be moving forward, that there's rains coming. I understand all of that, but I would not have, personally, I wouldn't be opposed to a continuance.
Well, that's my vote. I mean, honestly, I'd be happy to come down here for half an hour, a week from now and continue the conversation.
Is there anybody?
Or at the 28th and 29th if we,
We have two full, I realize we have a packed agenda on those days and we would have to keep it tight, but.
We're really highly advising against that.
Okay, so then we can have a special meeting separately on this topic if we need to, if the weather is a concern for people. But I
was a city attorney on jumping on this.
Okay.
Do we have to get him a present?
So it doesn't look like.
You can set a separate public meeting. You need to give the staff time to post it. This is still would be a public hearing, so it has to be properly noticed. We would need to
That's 2 days,
update
right?
the staff report.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we didn't have an obvious second on the motion.
Yeah.
So I'll take a crack at another motion, which is that we continue this to investigate the commission's authority in situations like this, and that we hold a special meeting as soon as possible on the matter so that we can be efficient with taking a decision on this item.
Okay, I second it.
Is it a second? Okay.
Commissioner Burling?
Yes.
Commissioner Buder?
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey?
yes.
Commissioner Montmorency?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion is passed to
That's
continue.
with date uncertain or specific date?
Well, I think as soon as
possible.
As soon as possible.
Okay.
Sooner the better.
Mhm.
Number 3.
I think within let's try and do it within the week, right? Okay.
All right.
As soon as possible.
Here we go. The next item in the orders of business, or now we're on to, you kick us off to the next section.
Our next order of business is the draft, the upcoming steering committee meeting for the Carmel Forest Management Plan on the October 28th and 29th.
Thank you. A little background, if anyone needs any background. The steering committee is a 10-member group comprised of the Forest and Beach Commission, plus 5 members of the public who were selected without their qualifications alone. We didn't know their names, and they were selected to help guide the process. We've been having mostly public input to this point, and now we're finally getting something somewhat tangible. So we're going to release that administrative draft tonight to the public, and you guys have had it, and then we're proposing the working session at the 28th and 29th to have you and the commission and the steering committee get together and go over it section by section with your concerns, what you've done, your reading, and then eventually, that goes into our next phase of environmental consulting so we all get on the same page for. I think we're trying to get the draft that we're going to submit for the CEQA, and we're just trying to hone this internally as an administrative draft before it becomes a final draft.
Justin, could you talk about Nikki Nierhaus' role in
Yes,
this?
and it will be you, the commission, plus the steering committee, and we also, forwarded a copy to our biological consultant, Nikki Nedeff, and she will be with us at the meeting too, giving her input as well.
So we'll have three tree experts participating in the workshop that we have
Yes.
on those 2 days. Yourself, Peter,
Yes.
and Nikki.
And Nikki, yes.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
So here's the administrative analyst extraordinaire to go over kind of what our draft
Agenda is.
outline is.
Extraordinaire. Thank you, Justin. My name is Tom Ford, with Public Works, and assist Justin and Bob and several others. Just wanted to go over the proposed timeline here. We're essentially just looking for your input on this. Is it possible, Justin, for you to scroll down to the proposed agenda? We'll start on Monday, the 28th. We're proposing 1 to 6 p.m. The reason why we chose until 6 p.m. is because we had heard from members of the public that in case they work until 4:30, 5 p.m., they would still like an opportunity to be able to be present and to express their opinions. That's also the reason why we decided to schedule in public comment at the beginning and the end of both meetings. So for folks who get off work, the 28th is your day to come, and we'll have public comment that will go in that last hour. If you could zoom in, if you wouldn't mind, Justin. So essentially, we'll just take the first 15 minutes to welcome announcements, roll call. I think we'll have to do roll call since it's an official public meeting. I believe so, but if you'll notice, I left 2 blanks there, or we left 2 blanks there. Starting at 1:15 will be the public comment. It'll go as long as it needs to, period. Whenever that ends, that's when the first commission discussion will take place. The first steering committee discussion will take place. That'll go until 3:30 p.m. We'll have a half an hour break, another hour and a half roughly, commission discussion, and then on to public comment. You all can discuss this amongst yourselves. We don't have to hold ourselves to a hard line always of to the minute. If there's really great conversation, or whether we just finish this section and we can, it's a bit malleable, but this is at least something to go off of. But we're proposing 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. We have reserved this already with the Sunset Center. It'll be at Carpenter Hall. We'll have 60 chairs set up, bunch of tables, 14 mics. There will be a mic for it. And then the cost of this is $1,500. That's standard for the city to pay our multimedia company to come in. And then lastly, on the 29th, Tuesday the 29th, we're proposing 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Similar situation with the public comment, beginning and the end, 45-minute break because it's a longer session than the day prior, and lots of discussion between the commission and the consulting ecologist and Justin. That's about all I got.
I think, Tom, just for the, this working session will be set up in a horseshoe, and it will be the entire steering committee. So all of our commissioners here, plus our steering committee members. It's designed to be a working session where we'll start at the beginning of the document, and we'll work our way through across the 2 days. It's a 240-page document, in case you haven't gotten deep into it yet. It's quite a big, it's a hefty document, and so I think it's important that we all come prepared to the meeting. So it would be helpful for everybody to really have reviewed the plan and to come with your comments and notes, so that we're providing feedback. We're providing feedback that everybody's well prepared for the meeting. I think that will be important.
Including the public. Pardon me for interrupting. I'm sorry.
But aren't we really dealing with the, most of that 200-some pages is information?
Yes.
So we're really dealing with maybe 30 or 40.
Correct. But it's still important. I think everybody have read the entire document and digested it, right, and provide feedback. And then we will, after this workshop, right, there will be another revision based on feedback and input to the plan. And then that draft will also be posted for public comment for another round of revisions, right? So this is just a public working session for the steering committee to provide feedback to city staff on the first administrative draft plan.
Which will also be part of our CEQA process with the documentation that we submit and have evaluated. Yes, all of that is intertwined.
So it sounds like we won't have it for today when you post this first administrative draft, but I think on the next version, that's the next update after the community or the steering committee workshop, it might be helpful in that second posting to include like a table, a summary of key changes or something like that, so that we highlight, what things, where are their key changes versus the plan that exists today. That might be helpful for the public, right? For us and the public to see.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Are we in discussion mode yet, or?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, one question I had was, there's been a lot of discussion kind of in the zeitgeist about like council meetings, for example, where like a lot of people are dissatisfied with the public comment period because it's like we saw today, it's not super interactive. It's not interactive really at all. And we've got like 11 hours of meetings here over 2 days. And I'm wondering if, we might be able to consolidate one of the public comment periods and, have some element of it where it's like a little bit more interactive, where it's more of a discussion and can kind of, people can build on points. It'd be interesting to kind of experiment with something like that. I know there's been some desire for that among the public.
As we talked about it, I think that the plan was to do that in the next set of workshops. So this first workshop is really, the steering committee hasn't even had a chance to review the plan and provide. So we have, it's hard to know right now what the feedback on that first draft that the city received is going to be. I think the hope was that we could get one round of, the only way we can provide that feedback, is in a public forum, like a public working session. So to provide one round of feedback to the city from the steering committee, but that after we have the next, so the second administrative draft, that we would take that into a community workshop where we would do exactly that. We would be able to have an interactive discussion, right, on the draft with the public.
Yeah, I just wonder about like whether we would want to have like the consultant go back and do another draft. I guess we'll have the public comment to go off of, honestly, but it feels like on a lot of these issues in town, one of the things that we've learned is like if we can get more kind of deeper public engagement early in the process, then sometimes we can save ourselves time, later in the process.
If I can make a comment on that, Commissioner Booter, many of the chapters, we call it chunks in the day, many of the chunks of the Carmel Forest Master Plan were presented to the commission with public comments along the way. So this now it's all packaged. So here's all the chunks, here's the whole thing with a nice executive summary and charts and graphs and things. So, but many of the component, especially the more technical, the
I was gonna say, but to Sarah's point, those were sort of like the data dump components, right? I mean, the ones that are touchy,
important
policy laden are the ones that we're going to be digging into, right?
As a matter of fact, in lots of ways, I'd like to see us just limit to that.
Yes.
And that all that first part, we don't need to have everyone discussing, I don't think. Better do that. How many trees were found and were they right and all that stuff. I think those particular, I'd like to go right to
the meat, what
their suggestions are, and part of it is what they've heard from us already, but that's the meaningful part, I think.
Hopefully we can move quickly through those. I do think that it's worthwhile for the steering committee to have input.
Well, that's not really the way it works. One thing, it seems to me, you bring up some of these questions that aren't really, a lot of what came in that report was their boilerplate. And then they adjusted it to us, and they think they did really a pretty good job. But that's not so much, I mean, if we go through that, 11 hours isn't going to be anywhere near enough. So I would like to see us really stick with what the, I'd say there's, I didn't count how many pages or so, but 2025 where maybe they're really talking about plans. And that's what I'd like to see us center on.
Well, because some of it is supposed to, sorry, some of it is supposed to just be facts. Like, this is how many of these trees that we have. This is how many, I mean, it's not a, debatable thing. So kind of go through that, just touch on that.
That should be very quick.
And then move into the
You
things that
guys
are interpretive
haven't been
and.
on meetings with Carmel long
I
I think though, Hans, I think your point is really well taken, and I think actually one of the things, the reason we're trying to get out in front of process and making sure we're running a really good process on this plan is to make sure that our community does feel heard and feel like they're a part of our process. And I think that this is the first working session for the steering committee to provide any input on the plan. We've just received it. And I think we'll have another revision, right, that will go through a community workshop, right, where there's public input and comment. I think our path on our timing on this, we still have a ways to go. And I think, I didn't check, but one suggestion was that we put on the city website, what our process is step by step with an indication of where we are, so that it's clear to people where we are in the process and when they can anticipate, next revisions of drafts. I think that would be really helpful to be transparent about that so people can see that. I think we'll have at least 2 more revisions before we get to a plan that would be potentially suitable for forwarding to the council, for example.
Regarding the matter of which sections will be discussed, just as a matter of an exercise between Justin and myself, we take a look at this document and we had said, what was it, 144, or, a lot of pages. This section is, the content is not that dense, and we think this would we tried to put realistic time frames on these. We didn't include that in the staff report, but we tried to put rough gauges on how long each section would take. I don't know if that needs to be an avenue of discussion now, or whether that's something we pass among all of you, but that's what we're here to request amongst all of you, as how long should each section be. We're happy to recommend it, but ultimately you can decide it in the moment.
I think part of it is we'll have to see as we get going. I think that's where the preparedness of each of us, including the steering committee members who are not here today, is that the commitment to come prepared is really important, because it'll be hard to get through everything if people are kind of in a first pass mode live in the meeting.
Who's leading the effort? Who's the number 1 chief? Are you?
No.
Who's the number 1?
Tom and I.
You two together, okay.
You two?
No. Okay, fine.
Just in terms of facilitating,
Yeah,
to
that's
keep
what
us on
I'm-
track. Yeah.
Just setting up the logistics you're referring to?
Well, and running it. If you see things going awry, or you go to one group to another and things are not sorting out, you can stick your heads up and say, hey, wait a minute.
Well, if I may, to be clear, this is a meeting, an official meeting of the Forest and Beach Commission.
Yes.
So the commission chair is the chair of that meeting. It's not, but I think part of the question is Tom Ford will be we called it MC the last time. The kind of spearhead, okay, here's the next section or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like I said, working together, but it is an official meeting of the Forest and Beach Commission combined with the steering committee.
I had foreseen my portion actually just kind of being the first 15 minutes. ensuring that here's Justin Ono, our city forester, for the announcements for this meeting. Here's the, introducing Bob Harari, our director, like basic facilitation things I perceived as and now we're opening it up for public, well, I guess the chair would say we're opening it up for public comment, but I foresaw my role being fairly short.
Thank you. Thank you for making the arrangements, for being thoughtful, for getting everything that we need set up at Carpenter Center for
Sure,
that.
absolutely, and thank you also,
Yeah, I think
Yvette,
it's a lot of time, but I think my expectation is that it will be a really productive session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We agree, and thank you, Yvette, for so much of your setting up this.
Okay, with that,
Back to Tom. Are you doing pickleball?
Are we gonna get public comment on that, or do we not need it because it's not an action item?
it's not an action item.
Is there?
Yeah, just discuss.
Yeah. Next up is the pickleball update. Right.
Oh, we didn't have public comment. You're right.
Okay.
On this last item.
Come on down.
Hi again, Commissioners. As to Commissioner Booter's point, I think that you really do need to have opportunities for public input as you go, because what we want to have is the public feeling like they're invested, they've had an opportunity to comment, so that when it reaches the council level, we're not going to council and pressuring council to kick it back to you guys for further revisions. So even though it might take a little bit longer in the short term, overall in the long term, it'll be a better product that we can all then get behind and support the council level. Thank you.
May I ask a question on that? I'd just like to ask a question because we're planning to have a follow-on community, like a 2-day session that's interactive with comment on the revised draft. The concern we've had about this first session is that absent the steering committee looking at it at all, it's hard to know how much content will need revision. And the example I'll give you that I'll just use as a practical matter is the tree list. So for example, if the steering committee had an opportunity to evaluate the tree list, right, it might not have spun out of control in the kind of way that it did. So the part of the idea here, at least the thinking behind it, is to let the steering committee have an opportunity in a public setting to provide a first pass comments on this first draft that hasn't received any public input yet. There will be an opportunity for the public to comment, right as it's structured right now, both days. But we were planning on having the roll up our sleeves working session with the public actually on the second draft, anticipating that if there's pieces in the first draft that are way off, like maybe what we experienced with the tree list, we could at least mitigate and get some of those out of the way early. So that was the thinking on having a two-pronged. We anticipate more than one revision on this draft.
Right, and I think that's good and laudable. It gets down to it's a bit of an art. So people in the public are going to want to feel like they've had, like, so when we did the Carpenter Hall thing, and then Bob and I had our exchange, I was concerned that basically all the information was presented ahead of time, then people are going to break out into their subgroups to review the information presented to them, but then there's no overall opportunity ahead of time to inform everybody else in the room in public comment as to what their thoughts were. So that was my concern at that particular juncture. So I think the important thing to do is figure out, and I appreciate, the time is limited, but I also think it's very important that you do your best to make sure that the public feels they've had a reasonable opportunities to input as you go along. So I don't know what would be reasonable, but like we're doing the first section, right? Okay, here's the first section, public comment. Here's the next section, public comment. So there needs to be a reasonable balance so that people in the public feel like they have an investment and have had a good opportunity to shape the document you'll ultimately be presenting to council. So, and I know it's a little hard to like really nail down exactly what that looks like, but I think it's going to be very important. And then you can also, then you can say, look, we've done this, and so when it gets to the council level, people will be like, yep, this is all of our document.
Right.
Thanks.
So I think we can take a look at, or I would say I can take an action item for us to look procedurally at how we can best do that. Because I'll tell you right now, the plan is to have public comment be the opening before we even address any section. The current structure is sort of the public comment is bookended, at the beginning of the session and the end of the session. So you could, and the initial public comment, we've left, as you saw, Tom had it open, but we're anticipating that could be a really long opening public comment. And if it's possible to do what you're suggesting, which is taking a section and then comment, we might, it might be more efficient than opening with what could be a very long public comment period before we get into the actual part of the document.
Sure.
So we can take that up.
And I know that was Bob's concern at the last meeting. Is there an opportunity, how much advance opportunity will the public have to review the first?
Starting tonight.
It's
I
going
think
out
we're posting
tonight.
it
It's
today.
gonna go
Yeah.
tonight.
All right, so we will have time to sit
Yeah.
with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, read the whole thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyhow, but I guess what I'd like to say from the commission's perspective is that the commission and the steering committee is committed on this process to making sure that we run a transparent process and we have high community input into the plan, and that we will make sure that happens, and that we'll see if we make any adjustment to the proposed this first session. But just so you know that we had anticipated on the next revision having a community workshop where people rolled up their sleeves and we did exactly what you're describing. This meeting was intended just for the steering committee to have an opportunity to comment on the draft, because nobody's had the opportunity on the steering committee to even do that yet. But we could end up potentially, we can see procedurally it may take more time, but we can see we'll take as much time as it needs.
Right,
but
I think just
we'll make sure
finding
we
that
run the process.
balance and, and making sure everybody
Yep.
feels heard and had an opportunity to shape it, but then also not taking for years and years and years and years. So I appreciate that
Yep.
there's a balance to be struck.
Thank you. Mhm. Any other public comment?
Just briefly, I think chairs should always run meetings. I think you might be setting up an expectation that Ian is reacting to when you hold a meeting in Carpenter. As a person who designs spaces and knows this community, I think we're going to get a certain type of meeting when we go to Carpenter. We take the trouble to do that. So in an opposite suggestion, not because I believe it needs to go one way or the other, you might think about that. If this is just a presentation to the steering committee and you really want a chance to mull it over yourselves, you might want to stay in this setting for that, because folks are going to want to be like, ooh, 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 if you set it up as a communal meeting. So I think we debated at long length on the housing thing exactly how to position the chairs. It really matters, the spatial cues you're giving people. The other thought I had, you guys have a schedule there. It doesn't have content on it. There was a reference to sections. I just want to make the point that showing stuff to the public, obviously, we all know, is not the same as incorporating public input. So, we've had this many public meetings, so we all love the thing. That obviously doesn't cut it. This is what Ian's referring to in some ways. So I was hoping that we would see here an approach to the presentation that builds on the feedback you've already gotten through the public sessions you have had. So for example, the direction that was overwhelming and the reason some of us are still showing up to these meetings had to do with a very deep dissatisfaction, obviously, with the original draft, a call to radically depart from that draft. There was discussion even among the staff here, I recall at an interim meeting, to dismiss the authors of the draft at the time, to abandon that draft. If that hasn't happened, and I don't know, I haven't seen it yet, then my request on the content piece is for you all to consider at least having the staff present to you an analysis of the way that this radical, rejected direction that it was going anyway differs from the historic approach to the forest in this town. There was I think there was a great feeling in the room with the big meeting that why have we reinvented the wheel? There's a dissatisfaction that we hadn't stuck with the original historic founding father approach to the care of the forest. So if you could have, and from a content perspective, to whatever extent the new direction by the unpopular consultant deviates, could you please have them explain to you why it deviates from the historic approach that we all have come to at least believe in, if not enforce? Thanks.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that. The meeting we had, which was just to be a discussion, but Victoria, you're sending out information saying we had a whole new plan. I had several people calling me saying, "What is this? You have a whole new..." We didn't have a whole new plan. So some of your people... I didn't speak to anyone beforehand. Some of the people came loaded. Ian, you were certainly one of them, who... So we do need to change some things. There's lots of things that have changed in Carmel, and Carmel does change. I can speak to it, having been here for more than 70 years, more than that. Anyway, I hope everyone comes with an open mind, because there does need to be some changes, and there's a big group who is for that.
And I would just like, as a point of information, I would just like to share that the very first plan draft is the one that we just received and that is being posted tonight. Prior to now, there was no plan. So I think there was some unfortunate misunderstanding about the meeting that was held in Carpenter. The community survey that was not run to build the plan. It was run just as a piece of input, as one component to the whole process that the city was undertaking. So I think there was probably maybe some misunderstanding or miscommunication, confusion about that. The survey was one small piece of the broader picture, and the first plan that we have is the one that's getting posted now. There was no plan prior to this. But I will say with the tree list, I just use that as an example when Ian was speaking, is that really, there were some things in the tree list that were fundamentally not appropriate for our town. And I think the reason we were having a steering committee review of this draft first, simply because no one's seen it, was to hopefully mitigate some of are there any things that are big and glaring that are misses as it pertains to our community and our town? And can we somehow get those out of the way before we end up with a draft that we have our whole community participating and commenting in? And I think the one thing we did take from the session that we held previously, and the feedback, was to make sure that even in the steering committee review, that we have a number of scientists and tree experts participating, right? Which is, I think, why the city has engaged Nikki to be present, and also we have 2 steering committee members are master arborists, right?
Well, I'm not on it, but I'm here for you. For you guys.
Pardon me?
I'm not on the steering committee.
Well, but
I'm
you'll
here
be
for you
present
guys.
in that. You'll be reflecting.
Yes. And the tree list is not part of the plan. It is separate. It is editable, and at this time, it's not what it was presented. It can change, and it needs to change. The one we have now has non-native invasive trees on it, so it does need to be updated. But it's not tied to the plan. The plan is, as an overarching plan, the tree list is separate and can be edited and changed whenever we need to.
And I'll just say one other quick thing. I think you walked in just after Kelly had mentioned we are going to be in a horseshoe. So we will have a similar setup for that sake.
we thought about here, but we didn't think everybody would fit. That was that we were concerned that not everyone would fit. Yeah. So,
Anyone on
okay.
Zoom with a comment?
Do you have comments on Zoom?
Yes. Linda, go ahead.
Yes, I just had a suggestion because I have seen the plan, and I don't see much mention in it of the Coastal Act. And Carmel is completely within the coastal zone, so under the aegis of the California Coastal Act and the Coastal Commission. And I'm wondering if there might be something at this first meeting particularly to kind of place us within that context and the portions of the Coastal Act that apply to Carmel and to our LCP, maybe put things in context so that our discussion kind of isn't just all personal opinion, but it actually relates to how we have this discussion and how we resolve problems in relationship to the Coastal Act and our LCP, our general plan, land use plan, and codes. I'm just wondering if we could have some kind of presentation or something at the beginning to orient us a little bit.
We can look into that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do you want to? Yeah, maybe Mary can comment on that.
Okay.
Yes, I think that is something that's important, that is part of this plan, and it should be information that is presented. So, yeah, I can go ahead and do that research and be ready to present it.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else on Zoom?
No.
Okay. Moving on, pickleball. Okay, Tom, would you like to, Justin, Tom, we have an update on pickleball?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kick this one off. So, as y'all remember, we met last month to, let's let everyone leave it's not here for this.
Go ahead.
It's okay, go ahead.
That we started this process of trying to nail down some sort of resolution between the residents and the local pickleball community, the residents around the Forest Hill Park tennis courts, tennis and pickleball courts. So we're recommending, we want to discuss and give some further advisory of what we've found out over the past month, and then just asking you to give us more direction, what you want to do temporary, or if you have any other avenues you'd like us to explore. So again, after the city council meeting where the council and staff advised you to push us to go into this matter, at the September meeting, we asked us to look into other jurisdictions and also what kind of scientific data we could gather about evidence-based, sound measurements and how many players are playing, to have real data. So this week, myself and Tom and Chair Brzezowski met with the city of Yountville's administrative staff and their Parks and Rec commissioner about their trials, and it's interesting. It's similar, smaller, older community, and they have a court in the middle of the park that is surrounded by 3 sides by residential neighborhoods, and also similar to Carmel, they are a small community next to larger communities, and the larger communities have the same amount or less pickleball courts than they do, similar to Monterey has 2 and we have 4, and the whole city of Monterey, just has the 2.
Oh, Monterey has way more than that.
Well, they have the 2 at Via Pariso and then Free, the other one.
No, way more. There's ones up in the hills, and I've played at least 4 different places with 2 to 4 courts.
From what I asked I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission, and asking Shannon yesterday, there's 2 at Via Pariso, and then there's some at the tennis center, which is a private institution on city property.
Take you for a drive.
Okay. In the city, not in
In the city of Monterey.
in the city limits, not in the county. And they travel, and because there's so few in larger cities, they come here. And I've always heard that Carmel's the place to go because it's a nice court and there's more of them. So it sounds like they tried several things. They tried limiting days of the week you could play. They tried limiting the hours, and then they ultimately found the barrier you put over the fence, which dulls the sound, worked best for them. It was pretty expensive. I think his estimate was they paid $20,000. And I don't know what it would cost for us, or if that would even work. It is different in terms of, I did look at their park when we were talking online, and they're, up in Napa area, it's very flat. Their park is in the middle of planned communities, so it's a bunch of newer homes in a big, nice park, but really, really flat. Because like sound engineers have said that, or the man told us that they've talked to people that the line of sight is the line of sound. So if you're standing and looking down over the fence, the protective fencing might not always work. So we'd have to get some clarification on that. But Tom, sorry, I was just running away with it.
You didn't introduce me by saying extraordinaire this time, but that's okay. So we did look into a couple of different mitigation avenues. Justin was just alluding to the Acoustic Fence, which is the name of the brand that the city of Yountville had implemented. I'm sure you can chime in on this. I got the impression that it appears as though it has that it is functioning, that it has done the job of decreasing the sound at the property line or from the private residences. I believe he had mentioned that it's kind of an ongoing discussion, but it appears as though that was a mitigation measure that was effective for them. With their context, Justin and I were talking about the level of visible transparency between for that type of material. Some of them are more opaque, or you can't see through them. And one of our colleagues had said, well, you need to talk with police. And so Justin and I, we don't have an answer yet, but we had thought that we could send a couple of models of those fencing to PD just to get we thought it'd be worth getting their input. So we're not completely done our research, right? This is our best shot at an update, but that's one of the avenues that we're exploring, and the general price, at least for a 3-sided fence in Yountville, was $20,000. Another thing regarding those fences, every time I tried to look for data, right, scientific hard data from sound engineers regarding the amount of decibels that is reduced by those barriers, all of them had an affiliation with the producers of those barriers themselves, and I didn't find that reliable. I'm sure the information's out there. I haven't found it yet. That's forthcoming. I'm kind of jumping to the evidence-based data, but this ties right into it. What we did find is one report from, this is actually on the second page of the staff report, the first bullet point. So there is a report that was prepared by an acoustics company for the city of Centennial in Colorado. And they had measured, I thought that this was an objective assessment, that's why we had thought of incorporating it here. They had said that comparing foam pickleballs to common regulation balls had shown that the foam balls can be 8 to 9 decibels quieter than regulation balls. They also had said that pickleballers often say that the foam pickleballs are not preferable to play with, right? So there's various things to consider here, but but that was something that we had thought was worthy to include here. Jumping over to local cities, the city of Pacific Grove, we had put their play times on here. It's 9 a.m. to dusk on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. An interesting note regarding the city of Monterey is that on their city website, they say, they request that they say, please use only USA Pickleball recommended pickleballs and paddles for quiet play. That's a predominant title or piece of information on their city website, and then they even have links, web links, to purchase those materials. So that was one of the measures that the city of Monterey ended up going with. It's not a requirement, but it's a prominent request of theirs, of their pickleball players. A note regarding the measurement of sound. We spoke with our planning and building department. When they do sound measurements for residential areas, for homes.
Generators and hot tubs and stuff.
Generators, hot tubs, they measure that at the private property line on the other side of the street. So, AKA, what will the neighbors be able to hear it and what would the sound be? They did lend us a relatively high quality sound meter, with the caveat that they said that they use that for a general guide and a general ballpark gauge, but that for policy related decisions, they pay consultants to do that. So we contacted several consultants. We did get pricing from one of them on an, what's it referred to as, an hour, on
time and materials.
Time and materials method, and it would end up being a bit more than we had anticipated at the last meeting. The information is in the fiscal impact section. I imagine it would be closer to $10,000 to $15,000 if we were to get a comprehensive sound engineering firm. And then one more thing to follow up on per our last conversation is that we did reach out. The last paragraph in the staff report refers to a question that we had asked of the city attorney for clarification regarding whether the Forest and Beach Commission can establish temporary mitigation measures. The city attorney's office replied and said yes. I am not proposing to do it or to not do that. Just a matter of information. That's about all I have for this. Yeah. If there's anything else.
We pretty much went over what we went over, and then if you guys have any other questions or any other guidance, but as Tom said, that you had asked last time whether you had the power and ability to establish, to tell us to put a temporary sign limiting hours, and you do.
I actually think it's broader than that, right? It sounds like what the response was is that Forest and Beach has the authority to basically set the, not that we would, but it is under Forest and Beach authority to develop a policy recommendation and implement for the city. I think whether we have the authority and whether we should take that authority are two separate things as it pertains to what city council might be expecting of us. But I think that the authority portion was clarified.
You have to get the approval of the director of Forest and Beach, which is me. So, unfortunately for you.
I have a question on sound. There was a suggestion that we sort of monitor the courts for a couple of weeks and maybe, 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 5 p.m. or something, and look at, how many cars, how many players, and a noise. An Apple Watch, every time I've been going down there doing it, I can turn on the noise thing and it shows me decibels up on the street. I've done it probably 6 or 7 times since I met Barb Lang there. So I'm just curious if we've thought about, is there a way that we could do some monitoring maybe divvy up a time and, people take time slots or something and, for 2 weeks, someone take 9 a.m., someone take noon, someone take 3, just to try and collect. So I think it would be helpful to have data in terms of our courts. I think that's a helpful suggestion that came from one of the pickleball players. And then particularly the noise, right? Because and even if the police say they don't like the fact you can't see through it, I don't know, can we just lock the courts at night and the police open them in the morning and close them at night or something, right? I don't think that should be, if to have pickleball, we need to have fencing up that mitigates the noise. If the choice is no pickleball or you have a fence and you somehow monitor the entrance and exit, that might be preferable to nothing, right?
Yeah, we don't want to reject any possible mitigation measure right out the gate. I think we agree on that.
Tom, can you tell me what Yountville is doing right now then with regards to their hours and days and?
Sorry, we forgot to mention that for their, they had described it as scheduling of play in the sense that 2 days a week, I believe it was from 9 a.m. until noon, they would have advanced play. Advanced players can schedule a time to come between 9 a.m. and noon on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On that same day, between, I guess, 1 p.m. and 5 p.m., it was for intermediate to beginner players. Was that?
The scheduled play is Monday through Friday, 9 to noon, and that's, they have a lot of players, so some days are advanced players, some days are intermediate, some days are beginners, and then from noon onwards, it's open.
That's right, yes.
And the weekends are open.
So it's 7 days a week?
Yes.
Okay. And it's roughly 9 to 5?
6, I think, is their time.
I can't remember the end time.
I think it was 8 to 12. Yeah, no.
I can
In the
check.
ballpark of either 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. with the
I
ending
think
of
it
either
was
5
8 to
a.m. or
6.
6 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah,
8 to 6.
I think it was 8 to 6, I
Okay.
think is what it was.
8 to 6?
8 to 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so 8 to noon was the first
Slot.
scheduling session, and then 1 p.m. to, I guess, 6 p.m. would be free play, as they had called it. And they had quite an extensive list of rules posted. Many of them were just like general subjective recommendations, like be kind to the people next to you and like give a high five to people. It's an unbelievably extensive list there. But for the scheduling, I believe it was 7 days a week, 8 to 6.
And how many courts were there?
4.
Yeah.
So similar.
It's
4
very,
courts.
and the closest neighbors are the same distance as ours. It's a similar.
Yeah, that was another thing that we had, this is an ongoing research that we have, and by the time we had prepared our staff report, we hadn't been able to incorporate, we had just done some overhead maps with Google Earth and made like a pretty reliable gauge where you can plot the distance between 2 points, and there are 5 houses within 100 feet from the edge of the court to the edge of the private property line. So that's something important to consider when it comes, because that relates to how planning and building measures their sound. So for what it's worth, that's it. 5 homes are within 100 feet.
So I think it would be helpful to get some monitoring of how much use over time we're seeing. Like, I don't know if you feel like that's something that the city can put together, you want some help, putting a monitoring program in place. But I think having some actual data on our courts across the day for a few weeks would be really useful.
Just for clarification, would it be monitoring of like the quantity of use, or would it be monitoring of the sound at different times? Granted that we're not sound engineers we all acknowledge that. But would it be monitoring the sound at that time? Because the primary issue is the sound.
I think I would take the number of people, the number of cars,
Sure,
and then
sure.
I would look at an Apple Watch noise decibels and maybe take three points, right? The west corner, the street corner, like there's 3 places that you could easily take a measurement off just an Apple Watch, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's imperfect, but it's not $15,000.
Right,
and just in
right.
terms of having some sense of,
And the only people who need to do that are people with Apple Watches.
well,
We would find
Yeah.
I like that comment, because what that really is getting at is a standardized approach. As many variables as you can remain constant is more reliable information. Even though we're not, sound engineers, we can have reliable information that's comparable if people are measuring things at the same location, even if it's at different times, from the same location at different points. So that presumably would be valuable information and help us refine our conversation as for the mitigation avenues that we'll take.
I just pulled up Yountville, and I'm not sure if you recall this in the meeting. They've got their programmed play times. I'm assuming that all the other times are open times. Does that ring a bell? Because they've got 8 until 10 is advanced on Mondays, for example, on Monday, Wednesday,
yeah.
and that's it. And then on Tuesday, it's 8 to 10 a.m. is an intermediate. Then there's a women's intermediate and a beginner and a rec all levels. But they roughly start at 8 and they do end at 5. And then there's some open slots. Does that mean that there's no play? Does that ring a bell? Or is that, because it does say when there's all play, and then there's times where there's blanks, like on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It looks like it ends at noon. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm just wondering.
It's 7
It is
days
all
a
day,
week.
but those are the
And it's open
programmed
play.
play times.
Yes.
And then, okay. And then I'm assuming, although it does say some are open and then some it's just blank. But in your
100%.
recollection, 8 to 5, some things are set things and some are open play. Okay.
Yeah.
And they felt that was working well for them?
So the background on that is they tried to limit days of the week and the hours, and they found that limiting the days of the week didn't work as much. And really the thing that worked the best was the sound fencing for them.
But the feedback I'm seeing here, there's women's times and there's advanced and there's intermediate. Did that work for people? Were they
Yes.
finding that worked?
Yes.
That
They do
people
like that.
adhered to it and they were okay with that and they
Yes.
just adjusted
They've said
their times?
They shared that scheduled play is less common. Like if you look at, because they've explored solutions like in other jurisdictions also,
Yeah.
they recognize that having scheduled play is less common. You tend to have more just hours and open play the whole time. They have enough. They have enough advanced play. There was some frustration between advanced players not getting court time and beginner. There was some, and a part of it they said was there's a social aspect to pickleball. So people come and they just want to participate in almost like a pickup game with somebody. And so by having these scheduled performance levels, if you're an advanced player, you can show up and know you can play with other advanced players, as opposed to just showing up for open play when you might only have a beginner or something. So they've said it's worked for them.
This is interesting, because I think that when we go to our public comment, to bring up some of these things, because we've sort of just been a dawn till dusk and anyone come and play, I think it's going to be an interesting thing to hear what our community feels about, if that's one of the things that we are getting, some of the information that we're getting some feedback from them. Might be useful.
We have some community.
Yep.
I know. I'm excited to hear.
But the monitoring, I guess, how do you suggest kind of moving, I think, I don't know if it's possible before our next meeting, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I do think having some monitoring of our courts
Yeah.
multiple times a day, like, just would be really helpful information
Sure.
for us to have.
Sure. If you're asking me, I think that it should be the same device that each person uses, whether it's multiple people or one person.
Yeah.
It should be the same device that's used, the exact same device. Whether that be the sound monitoring, sound meter that Planning and Building had given us, which to a certain extent is a professional quality and is able to be calibrated.
Yeah.
I think that it should be the same points plotted. I personally would suggest that we go off of what Planning and Building does and put 3 different points, all at, pick 3 of the 5 houses that the sound is within 100 feet of, take readings at different times of the day, and write how many people and what the decibels were. That's at least reliable, comparable data, even if it isn't perfect, expensive science. But at least it will be something. Yeah.
And is that something you think that like the city can do? Like, do you think that we have people that could swing by like 4 times a day for a couple weeks and do that and just take the measurement? Is there anybody in city, any of our city resources that could do that, or do you need us to find people that could help do it? I guess I just think that data would be really useful.
We could sure use some help.
I think we always welcome help. I think other people's, feel free, anyone can give their input on this. I personally don't think it would need to be 4 times a day for 2 weeks straight. I could foresee myself playing my part in the role, because if I'm going to be reporting on this, I kind of like to make sure it's being done correctly, or at least consistently in a standard manner. I can see myself going out there Monday morning, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, the next week, Tuesday midday, Wednesday morning, Friday at 2 p.m. Having a couple of these over the next 3 weeks, because we need to get our reports done within the 4th week. And then we would have 9 data points, all standardized over 3 weeks. That would be reasonable, as something that I could commit to. If we would want more data points, perfectly fine. I think we certainly would need additional help.
Okay.
Just for what it's worth.
Okay.
Let's open it up.
Yep.
To the people who are waiting.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Ready for public comment? Howard? Yep, come on up. Yep. Perfect.
So my name is Michael Lang. You met my wife, Barb. I've been playing pickleball for about 7 years. I live about a 10-minute walk roughly from Forest Hill Park. I am a retired engineer, so I can appreciate your fondness for collecting data. And I'm also president of the Monterey Bay Pickleball Club. And so we are not a club, like Spanish Bay or something like that has some physical courts or something. We play wherever we can find places to play. Over the last 7 years, I've played pretty much at every place there is to play on the peninsula. I've been involved in...
Can you speak a little closer to them?
Sorry. I've been involved in some level of advocacy in each one of the communities as they seem to rise up against pickleball. So first it was Monterey, then Pacific Grove, and then now my home court's at Carmel. I wanted to speak, and there's a lot more that I can get into 3 minutes. So let me just maybe address some of the things that I heard in the report. I would really like to advocate for the acoustic fence, if that's something that you can do. It's currently not in use anywhere on the peninsula, although PG, I believe, is installing it. And I believe MPC is also installing it. MPC is trying to minimize the amount of noise that goes to their cafeteria. Perhaps follow up with the city of Pacific Grove as well. I'm pretty sure they did a engineered sound study maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. So they may have some data for you. But I like the idea of the acoustic fence if it can be made to work. I think it was Monterey that the police didn't like it. But I see it as the only kind of win-win solution here, right? Otherwise, we're asking neighbors to put up with noise, or pickleball players to basically stop playing there. Either fewer days per week or reduce courts, which limits players, or to change the way they play, which personally I think is the worst, and that's by using foam balls and foam paddles. It's simply not the same game. It's like if you were to go play golf with one of those little plastic wiffle balls or something like that, say that you could only play with this plastic wiffle ball on a golf course. So that's kind of what it means to somebody who plays a lot of pickleball. It's not the same game. I would encourage you not to take temporary mitigation measures. Again, this is kind of the engineer in me. I would hope that you would continue with this data gathering that you've talked about before you jump into a decision. I think you should also think about what are you going to do with that data, because that may guide how you're going to collect your data. For example, what happens if the data shows that everybody plays on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but you make a decision temporarily to say, well, we're going to say no play on weekends. Well, you didn't make any effect because people are not playing on the weekends. That's just an example. I guess my time's up. I'm more than happy to talk to any one of you if you have any just questions. I have a lot of history, and so if that can provide background. Thank you.
I have one quick question for you, which is what capacity do you think the local pickleball community has to participate in the funding of the Acoustifence? I know in Yountville that was a shared, that it was part the pickleball group and part the city.
Yeah, so we talked about that at our last board meeting about a week ago or so. And we do have some money. We don't have a lot of money, but we do have some money. We also have the ability to do fundraising. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so we can collect monies and potentially donate it to the city. Certainly, if you would allow us to do a small tournament or some type of event at the courts, that tends to draw people out. That would be a way for us to raise money, kind of go hand in hand with paying for upgrades at the facility. But yeah, I'd be willing to talk to you more about what we might be able to do financially.
And just out of curiosity, how much money has the organization already invested? Because it's my understanding that the 4 movable nets were all donated by your club.
Yes and no. So our club, because of our history at Via Paraiso in Monterey, where when things first started, we played as an organized club, very similar to what happens in Yountville, where we would play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we would have 1 court for advanced players, a couple courts for intermediates, and 1 court for beginner. And we did this for quite a while, and we became a target. So the neighbors weren't just going out against pickleball players, they were going specifically at the pickleball club because we were the ones that were bringing in all the players. So when that happened in Monterey and then again in Pacific Grove, when Carmel came around and Susie asked, can we put in 4 courts instead of 2 courts to the city, she specifically said, can we keep the club out of this? Because the club is too easy of a target. So the players there did raise the money themselves, but the club didn't contribute anything because we were specifically asked not to. I offered. They said no. So they have a WhatsApp group. I'm part of that WhatsApp group as well as probably everybody here. There's over 100 people on the Carmel Players WhatsApp group, and they basically said, we need to buy 2 nets, and I think later they said we need to buy 2 more nets. And within like 2 days, they had all the money they needed, about $1,000 or something like that to buy 4 nets.
So it was that. Okay, I was just curious what the total investment was.
So it all depends on how good a nets you want to get. The little pop-up nets, which I don't recommend, with no wheels, those are about $150. The rolling ones, the low-end rolling ones are about $300. You can get high-end rolling ones up to about $2,500. So.
I was asking more as it pertained to the $20,000 for the Acoustifence. So that was.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about
Thank
the.
you. Okay, thank you. More public comment?
Yeah, hello. My name is Michael Kennedy. I'm a local pickleball advocate, and matter of fact, probably the best resource you have for pickleball information is the person who just spoke, Michael Lang. So be sure to tap back into him. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he has the biggest heart for pickleball and people's fitness levels. I started learning pickleball 4 years ago. I played tennis my whole life, and it's got a hold of me like nothing else. And I play at all 4 public parks. Matter of fact, I like pickleball so much I became a USA Pickleball Ambassador, which is a highly unpaid volunteer to help promote pickleball in local communities. So I work with RV parks, I work with all the cities, city council meetings, parks and recs. I do a lot of stuff to try to help promote pickleball. So obviously I'm going to speak in that favor. When we learn that our PE classes here are going to be cut short, that is pickleball in Carmel, I know it's an inevitable thing. It happens in communities all over the place. And so you are in a position where you're being given a political hot potato and you have to make decisions about it. I know it's not easy to do. Please get more input from players here that are playing at Forest Hill. I know, is it Kelly? I think you've done that already somewhat. And also what I've heard already with some of the gentlemen that are speaking, officials are speaking, is it's very impressive, the input that you're getting. And I commend you for that. I hope you continue to do that. You need to get more data. However, PGE is not the best model. I learned to play there through the PG adult school classes, and I found that, okay, their play is limited there, of course. As you know, there's 5 courts, and however, we've done some surveys over the last year and found that over about 6-month period, we, meaning me and some of the other players who play at Pacific Grove at Morris Steel Courts, that the ratio of pickleball to, the ratio of pickleball to tennis players is 25-1 on average. That means 96% of the players who are playing at Morris Steel Court are pickleball players at any given time, and 4% are tennis. It also means, because they've restricted hours there in Pacific Grove, that 84% of the court time is allocated for tennis, of which there hardly anybody ever playing, and only 16% of the time for pickleball players, counting 96% of the players who are playing there in pickleball. So obviously it's not the best model. However, you have to deal with something. So if you have to make decisions about limiting pickleball, please don't use the same schedule as PG. Don't restrict play on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, because that'll squeeze the balloon even more and people have to go elsewhere. So keep in mind those kinds of things. And also your sound engineers should very well know that, for example, if the sound if a pickleball paddle right here is measured 20 feet away, it's going to be a certain number of decibels. If it's twice this far, it's going to be 1/4 the sound intensity. And 3 times 1/9. It's called the inverse square law. So anyway, I hope that you will make some, it sounds to me like some wise decisions. Please get input from the community as much as you can. The pickleball players and people like Michael Lang are a wealth of resources. Thank you. Okay.
Next. Hello, my name's Marion Weaver. I'm a local landscape architect, and I'm an avid pickleball player. So I have actually, I'm a big fan of public parks. Public parks do amazing things for people. So I've been playing the public parks in Seaside, Wheeler Park, Via Paraiso, and Forest Hill. On Sundays, it's a real treat. So I want to just say, I hope the hours don't get too restricted, just because the weather is also not always perfect to play in Forest Hill. So every Sunday, I just pray that it's gonna be dry enough to come and play. So, I mean, I don't think you can even compare really different places in regards to play times, because, like in Carmel, it could be, if we can't play a certain day and then the other days it's wet, nobody's gonna even consider going there anymore. That's kind of what's happening in Via Paraiso, because I met so many incredible diversity of people at Wheeler Park. It's my favorite place to go, because I meet people from Tonga, I meet people from CSUMB. I have made so many friends, and we go, okay, where do we go? There's not enough courts. So when, we have Paraiso, we don't even want to go there, because there will be too many people sit there waiting. So it's restricting the courts would really make, I think, the parks more useless to everybody. And there is not a lot of free pickleball courts here on the peninsula. I mean, we have clubs, but not everybody, especially the young people, cannot afford club memberships, etc. And it's a really, really great sport to bring generations together. I cannot tell you, I recovered from Lyme disease literally with pickleball. It pulled me out of it, and I'm just hoping it stays open, because I look forward to Forest Hill. I take, I don't do anything else on Sundays, but hope that it's not too wet to play at Forest Hill. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you a quick question, ma'am? Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Can I get your thoughts on having different programs throughout a day, or do you sort of want the open?
So I think what it arises for is because we internally have so many players, and everybody, so I think they did the organization on advanced versus beginners, just so everybody gets their thrill, because a lot of times, but the beauty of public parks, I think, is that actually it is not so regulated, and I can come in as a beginner, because who is rated to be the pro and who is the beginner. So it is beautiful that the people that know more about pickleball now get to play with the people that are beginners, and maybe they learn something from it, and we all were beginners. So to me, it's actually a very different way of playing when you go to a public park than if we play in a park, in a club, because at a club it's organized. Okay. There's courts for 4.0, there's courts for, and sometimes that's a little bit intimidating. So I definitely hope that public parks, what we have, stays.
Okay, thank you.
And I do feel for the neighbors. I do feel if it's too noisy, but I also think it's at certain times where it's, like it's October, it's beautiful, we have so many visitors. There's people coming, and they come to visit, and they go like, oh, is there pickleball? It's to that degree that you don't even want to go on vacation if you can't have a little pickleball besides the beautiful ocean. But I think it will be less play as soon as it rains and if it's foggy. So it may be very acute during certain times of the year, and not so bad when we all stay more inside.
Thank you.
I feel I should come after you. First, thank you. My name is Didier Diaz, and I live within earshot of the court. This is the first time I hear common courtesy from a pickleball player, so thank you so much. You mentioned the fact that right now it's the best weather in Carmel. September, October, the fog is gone, it's not raining yet, even though I'm praying for rain. And it's great. You want to keep your windows open, your door open. I've got great bay windows that open from my living room to my patio. It's wonderful. The problem is right now, pickleball noise comes through there, so I don't do it. I hear everything positive about the sport, and that's wonderful. The issue is it's noisy. I've just heard a lot about how much Carmel takes care of its trees, how much it protects them. I hope we will use the same standard, the same fervor to protect the peace and quiet, right? And I have sent Mr. Ford a list of cities that says, this doesn't match our place. I mentioned last time how much Carmel says, you can come here, don't worry, you won't listen to gas-powered weed whackers and keep your voice down and so on. I hear that we are doing tests when people have hot tubs to make sure they're not too noisy. How often does your hot tub run? Pickleball runs pretty much the whole time. So I want you to remember, whatever hours you allow pickleball players to play, you will essentially create an ongoing building site for me in terms of the noise it makes. And it's one that doesn't stop. So that's where I stand. I'm sorry, it's a very different approach than the majority of people, because by definition, the majority of people here will be pickleball players. They outnumber us. So to me, it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed in a place like Carmel for the same reason we protect our trees. Now they said, so the Yountville approach doesn't do anything for me. Actually, I was scared when I heard that. It's like, oh great, even more order, more people can now play. It's going to be even more nonstop than now. What I hear, however, is Yountville put this acoustic fence. If they are effective, I love it. I just sent Mr. Ford a review of a ball, and maybe you guys have tried it, called the Gamma Librarian. The particular reviewer, it's very recent, it's from last month, said he had tried other balls, didn't like them because they broke the game, and it felt like this one, he actually said it was fun. If that could be prescribed, it gets rid of our problem. I've also heard feedback from, I do have friends who play pickleball, about this ball or about recent foam balls, and it was positive. So that's kind of, I hope we can do something. In the meantime, as we spoke last time about putting something temporary, I would agree with what was just said. Pacific Grove allows play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Make it on the reverse day. So allow only Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in Carmel. And oh, by the way, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I drive very often down Carmel Valley Road. There are courts that do have pickleball nets at the Carmel Valley High School, about 5 miles from here. I believe on the weekend they would be free to be used. I've never seen anybody there. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you find are the busiest times, just from your anecdotal observations?
Weekends are the busiest time, definitely.
And what hours are the busiest
I have
times?
seen often on the weekends, all courts taken, as many people are on the court as are waiting, hence the issue with parking.
All day long? What are the typical hours that you find, and just any
It's
information?
typically, it seems to be more the morning, but I haven't. I have thought of creating a spreadsheet, but I don't know that you want mine.
Is there a certain time that you would say it starts 9 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m.? Do you have 7 a.m.? What do you find?
I mean, it happens, and it's tremendously annoying when it happens, but I would say it's rare to have people come before 9 a.m.
Okay, so 9 is the typical starting time.
Yeah.
Until about what time on the weekends? During the summer, during the fall?
It can go until 7, but it's not too many people.
Okay.
And we've heard that the horror stories of people playing with their headlights. How often, have you seen that in person? How often has that happened?
I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to be honest for once. I saw it once, and it was tennis players. But so no. I mean, and again, these are the horror stories they make for whatever nice print. But I want to point out that what may be considered normal 9 to 5 is still a huge nuisance. It totally changes the fabric of our neighborhood. Imagine putting that everywhere. Imagine that level of noise everywhere, right? That's, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sanjay. I just became a resident of Carmel 2 years back. I just want to say what she said is so true about this town coming in and playing pickleball. For us, it's always a joy to be there at the forest courts. But as he said, the case of forest courts may be very different from a case of PG or any other courts around the town. If you need to do that study, I would suggest, like he said, I play there 3 times a week, definitely, and I see the crowds mostly on Saturday or Sunday, and usually it's between 9 and 12. I think between 12 and 3 is much more reduced. And I think by evening the fog comes in and the weather plays a big part. So this Carmel court is very different from the courts which we are discussing. If she's played at Monterey, she can also say the same thing. I'm sure, but I had a signatures taken from all the players out there. We do sympathize with the noise at times. It could be a question, but I'm sure finding a solution, getting the measurements, you don't need a $15,000 expenditure. I'm sure if if people stand around certain points of that court with those Apple Watches and certain times when the highest people are playing, you'll definitely get a good measure of what's going to happen. But this sport is a growing sport, there's no doubt about it, but there is so many positives about this sport. I think for me as an outsider just coming into this town and making friends with people, that's what I wanted this community to be, and I'm so happy being out here, and pickleball is one of our strengths of being out here and joining this community. And this is a signature campaign for 25 to 30 of us who've been playing on that court, and we have a few things to say. I didn't know where to hand it, so I just got it along with me. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The genuine signature for people playing. Okay? It's not a made them up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other people in the chambers? How about on Zoom? Do we have anybody that would like to comment?
No.
Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission. Does anybody have any thoughts before we move to the city forester report?
So the next steps here are to have the staff collect some sound data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think to continue the investigation of other jurisdictions, what people have done, I think there's some additional work, collecting Tom, I'm happy to sit with you and help figure out a plan on just getting some data, monitoring on our courts. And then I think it would be useful to better understand the acoustic fencing.
I was going to say, like,
that's important to understand that. I think, that seems to have made a real difference in Yountville, where they have private property lines within 100 feet of the courts, like here. So it seems like if noise is the big issue, that just restricting dates and times just pushes the problem. It's like it limits the problem, but it doesn't solve the problem, right?
And just to clarify, that the Yountville folks thought that the fencing
That would be interesting to find out how
was
much
effective.
Yeah.
How much? Tom, you spoke to them. I mean, you've spoken to them
Yeah.
too. I mean, just characterize what they said for us.
They said since they've had the acoustic fence, it's working well. They also have put a community, I forget the acronym they use, but they have a community group that feeds into their Parks and Rec Commission that's comprised of players and residents, and they sort of self-monitor themselves at the courts, and I think since the acoustic fence has been up, it has not been the same issue. It's copacetic, right?
It sounds like the complaints went down by a lot.
They have residents on that citizen, I think it's citizens group or something that they call it. So it's sort of like an
advisory committee.
I want to say
almost.
like an ad hoc. It's just a group of people that volunteer, and they sort of make sure that people are, check in. Are people playing by the rules? Is the noise manageable, et cetera? It seems to be working well.
I'd like to make a suggestion also that by the next time we do an update is that we reach out to Mr. Lang, I believe, and talk about possibility of fundraising, and also we could do our homework on trying to get a ballpark cost estimate for that acoustic fencing.
Yeah.
So if we can work out something where we can collaborate on a fundraising, and I personally, I really like the idea of having a tournament of some sort, raising money for the fencing. But that's a commission. The point being is that
I'm not sure.
like the chair was saying, to put that would hopefully significantly reduce the noise, and it's more of solving the problem than just reducing the hours, which is not really solving the problem on those hours when it's still open. So maybe we should try to focus a little bit more on the route of the fencing, but it's going to be costly. But it sounds like there might be an opportunity to share some costs.
Michael, can I ask you a question? The Monterey Bay Pickleball Association, correct? Is that the name? The club, or Monterey Pickleball Club?
Monterey Bay Pickleball Club.
Okay. And what association do they have with the Pickleball Posse? Are they the same people?
So
are they the same?
so good question. So the Carmel Pickleball Posse is the WhatsApp group that I spoke about. So
Beyond the WhatsApp group, are they organized with dues and such, or?
Loosely organized.
Okay.
So they don't have any dues. They have a treasurer. I don't know if they have any other people, but basically somebody has to collect the money for when they do like the rolling fences that we bought. That's the only kind of person.
Much less organized than the Monterey Pickleball.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll get it eventually.
Yeah. Google us on.
Okay. I know I've seen
Monterey
it.
Pickleball. I think we used to be the first one. I don't know if we still are.
All right. Thank you.
I will say on the fence, and they did share this, they said that initially the players didn't really want the acoustic fence because their pickleball courts are, you know how we have a park on two sides of ours? They have vineyards on two sides of theirs, so there was concerns about, we come to play in this beautiful space. But he said that all the pickleball players, even though they have the three sides, which is likely the same configuration that we might end up with, that once it was implemented, the noise complaints went down and the pickleball players are fine, and everybody's still happy to play, and they can see the vineyards on one side, and we still have a park on what would be the south side open maybe. So there was a little bit of like, we're playing in this beautiful outdoor environment and now we're putting up soundproofing. But he said once it was installed, everybody quickly got over that, and they would much rather have that soundproofing than to lose pickleball. Was sort of what it came down to.
Do we know of any jurisdictions that have this right now that are closer to us that we could perhaps go visit?
Maybe I bet the acoustic fence people could tell us. The people who
that might be
manufacture that.
I think MPC might have one up. I'm not entirely sure.
MPC? Okay.
I'd be really interested in doing a field trip.
Yeah, I would too.
Experience it, I'm just curious if it's like dramatic or if it's marginal or what.
Alan said it was pretty dramatic, and he said it also does something where he was describing where it creates a chimney effect because you have three sides of soundproofing, that it ends up causing sound to go up as opposed to out, right? So that that was part of the way it worked.
Okay. Maybe we could find that out. Be great.
Well, I've worked before with a sound engineer just for calming traffic noise, and so it's very important where the source and where the destination of the sound is. But there's these companies that probably specialize in the acoustic for pickleball, but there's just regular sound walls. You can build that. There's details to build sound walls out of wood. Wood's not so good because it shrinks, and then it has to be very tight, but there might even be other materials than what somebody sells just for. Of course, they may have the technology and studied it. I don't know. I'm just saying, for me it's usually earth berms, but we won't have room for that. But it's earth berms or sound walls, and sound walls have been used for other like traffic noise, other things to calm noise down. And then, the other solution is to have a nice fountain and whitewash the noise, but I don't think we have room for that either, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments? I think we're good. Okay. City Forester's report?
Before we get started, I just wanted to quick mini announcement. At 6 o'clock, the carpet cleaners are coming, and they'll be very loud.
Yay.
I will try to have them start in the far corner of the building.
You have 3 minutes.
But that might have to cause us to hurry up.
All right, so just hitting the highlights here. We pretty much covered the master plan meeting coming up later this month. In terms of our contractors, I don't know if anyone had seen them out there. West Coast Arborist was tasked with grinding a large amount of stumps, 40 stumps, with some were taken off and a few were added. So we're still finalizing just how many stumps they ground. And then after they ground them, they prep the sites with new plantings, potting soil, and I provided them with trees to plant. So there's been around 40 stumps ground, and those trees were planted in the same spots. So we have all coast live oak and Monterey pines that were planted over the past month. I had originally planned for other, not exotic, but different native trees, big leaf maple, Catalina ironwood, and California sycamore, but I've been having trouble finding anything. I'm having trouble finding pines and oaks even, so that's been a pain point for me, is just finding good nursery stock locally, because I want to restrict it to local genetic stock. But we are starting a nursery operation at Public Works, where I've got pines and oaks and cypresses growing that will eventually be planted in the city from seed gathered and seedlings gathered in the city.
I think the idea of getting maples and things like that, people really do enjoy color, and
Well, that's the thing. They're native to the area, and they lose their leaves, and it's something, just a little diversity, a little more visual interest. Then they grow with the pines
there is a
and
group
the
that
oaks.
doesn't want it, but I think that
They all left.
Yeah, I know. Yay.
So part of that was after the bike lane on San Carlos, we were tasked with removing a lot of stumps, and that it's been an ongoing process, but at least 5 of those stumps were ground and planted, and we're going to grind a few more stumps and plant. There's some empty spaces we're going to replant back there too. Topes Tree Service took out a whole bunch of the black locust at the corner of 11th and Unipro. If anyone goes down 11th and tries to turn left, I don't know if you noticed, it was pretty bad.
It's right near my house. It's a dramatic change, so thank you.
And then as we're getting stuff done, we're still sending out more task orders. For the update, I can provide this to you guys later. I know Kelly had asked for a report card in terms of our tree list. The problem is, when those numbers came up that we were pitching, that was before we did the other survey of the inventory of the rest of the city. So we had 136 excellent trees, that stayed the same. We had 4,871 good trees, that's now 5,096. So things have gone up. 4,901 fair trees, that's now at 5,114. 728 poor trees, it's also gone up to 751. Very poor trees, we had 130, now it's at 132, so it's showing we are removing some of those. And we had 191 dead trees, now we're at 175. So not only did we remove some from the original total, but also as they're being added in, we're taking them out. So we're progressing on our pathway to catch up with the poor, very poor, and dead trees throughout town.
Do you have a chart of that in the report?
No, we just put it together today, but I can put that
Okay.
together.
I think having a chart of that
Yeah.
we could see every month updated, with keeping the original numbers in there so you can see
Yeah.
as it's ratcheting down, would be really valuable.
I'll add that to the next month's Foresters Report, and ongoing, we'll put
Right.
that with graphical
Okay.
representation.
Because that really is the scorecard on our ability to catch up with deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
As it pertains to the inventory that Davey did that feeds into our forest plan,
And
right?
our-
So I
and
think
our
that's
budget,
a relevant.
and the budget we were given was-
Right, but I think it's important to track, it's quantitative,
Yeah.
right? And it ties to the work with our plan.
Definitely. In September, the city crews planted 20 trees, pruned 14, and removed 12 trees. All the trees planted include 15 Monterey pines, 3 coast live oaks, and 2 Monterey cypresses. We've bought trees from newer nurseries, getting different and better stocks. I've been really trying to reach out. They weed whacked the Scout House, which will now be a task order for Town and Country to do ongoing, because I know that's been an ongoing issue with weeds growing around there. we got the person in the recreation company, Ross, looked at the Forest Hill Park and only had minor and things for the playground equipment. So we're going to implement that coming up soon. I'm going fast.
It's a present for you.
We cut a cypress trunk into a new bench that will be going onto Scenic, replacing a rotten bench on Scenic at some point. I don't know if Dale's here anymore, but I'm pulling off of their slides. They did a beach cleanup for the Save Our Shores 40th anniversary, where they it says they picked up 50.5 pounds of trash. It's pretty amazing. And then he brought 25 Stevenson School students with Joey Canepa and pulled invasive plants in the North Dunes. Yeah, I'm going to keep it to the bullet points and pass it on to Bob.
Yeah, just one more thing on the Forester's report. If you look at the page 4 on the top, this is the city forestry parks and beach activities. You look at the chart, the color-coded chart. Can I pull that up on the screen?
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have been doing that. Keep going. One more there. You can see on the far right, this is 2024 year to date. We've planted 158 trees, which is the most we've done in 10 years in terms of planting. And then also, last year we started to look at stumps, so there wasn't very many. But this year we're starting to make a noticeable dent on the backlog of stumps. So I think this data is worthwhile to kind of compare year after year. The spike we had in 2022 is when we did mass pruning downtown, if you recall. But I think we're doing pretty good overall year to date anyway. Yeah, the goal is to have that green bar be equal to or more than the orange removal bar. We always want to keep the green bar as big as possible. Yeah. So.
I have one question, Justin, and I don't know if you want me just to email this to you, but I think for the, I missed it during our Forest Master Plan Steering Committee review. Is it possible to see the Monterey Pines and the cypress distribution by age?
By size, not by age.
Or by size?
Yeah, we can do by size because when they're doing their inventory, they don't know how old it is. And we don't always either, unless you like the lady here was like, oh, I saw that tree being planted. It's a rough estimate. You don't really know how old the tree is until you cut it down and count the rings. But the
height would be really useful.
I don't know if they got that. The diameter is the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever you have that indicates something about age, because I think we always talk about these old pines and how many of them, they're mature and they're approaching the end of life, and a lot of them, I'm just wondering how many less than 10-year-old Monterey pines do we have in town?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that.
How many do we have that are maybe 40 years old, that are halfway through their life? I just think at young, medium, and old.
We do that usually through size classes, like 0 to 12, 13 to 24, 24 to 36,
it would just
and 36
be nice
and above.
to know the distribution so that we have some evidence-based ability to talk about those pines and the cypress too, because those are the ones I think we're going to hear a lot of feedback on.
Yes, and we can do that.
I'd like to make one comment about trees, and of course I'm eager to get going, but remember that there were only 3 people here who were talking about trees. They talked it as though the whole city believes just what they say, but there really were just 3, and they're 3 of the most vocal, as you know, and we both know from that last meeting. But, Victoria was the one who set that whole thing up, and I think if we look at our questionnaire that we did, there was 22% who wanted more trees, and then 33 who wanted fewer, and I think we have to keep that in perspective. And same when we have the workout thing, we're going to attract a lot of the group. We've got to keep our heads together and think that, okay, these are the vocal ones. Sorry, you're through.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you.
Public comments on the forester's report?
No, we don't have public comments anymore on that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I missed that part.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's no public comment. We're just ready for.
Okay, all right.
Yep, for your report.
Public Works report for
Thank you.
September.
We could get Mary to comment.
Last week, City Council awarded a construction contract, $503,000 to Sharp Engineering to start do the construction of the San Antonio Pathway, reconstruction from San Antonio between 2nd and 4th Avenue. The reason I'm bringing that up is that we'll have up to 3 non-significant trees cut. Okay, and
You said non-significant?
non-significant trees, 2 up in the closer to 2nd Avenue and 1 closer to 4th. So it'll be up to 3 trees, hopefully no trees, but we'll assume up to 3. A significant amount of vegetation will be removed in this operation. This is a major construction project, so that we start in November. It'll be several months, and the weather's going to could be a factor. After construction, then the city crews will be replanting. So in November, December, you'll see a lot of vegetation being removed, but that's to get the wall back together. That's it for City Council.
Is that project overlap any of the same area for the undergrounding?
Yes, in fact, that came up at the City Council meeting. The private residents have petitioned to PG&E to go underground in that same section.
Yeah.
2 different things. We did coordinate. Our project is more isolated location, 44 locations where we have to rebuild there's columns. We rebuild the columns and then put the fence up. The undergrounding is going to be all out in the street.
Okay.
And along. It's not going to be spots. It's going to be a continuum. So 2 different types of construction, 2 different timelines.
But what you build isn't going to be
No,
hung out by
it will
the-
not.
Okay.
There's no
Okay.
conflict.
Right.
Let's see, Part B is, in terms of capital projects, the Mission Trail Nature Preserve 3 drainage projects by Rio Road is substantially complete.
That new wooden walkway is fabulous.
You saw it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in, huh?
Yeah, so it's in the ground. We have to do some revegetation there, so that's going to help next week. The City Council will be conducting a tour of inspection to kind of see, in lieu of a ribbon cutting, we're calling it a tour of inspection. It will be be fantastic if any of the commissioners can come out. That's November the 4th. I guess maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock for a tour of inspection, walk the boardwalk, look at the pipes and the new swale and everything. But it's the first 3 of 8 projects along the stream in Mission Trail that will ultimately help the stream stability. You were good? You were thinking? You were okay. Shoreline infrastructure repair project, it's 2 things. One, it's the 4th Avenue outfall wall on the beach. It's also the 2 remaining wood stairs that have to be repaired. We selected a consultant. We opened up the fees, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've been working with them to reduce the scope of work, to phase it out, reduce their hourly rates. So it's been months. We've been negotiating for months now. We've reduced it well over $100,000 in county. So we're still working on it. We haven't forgot. But that's where that project is at. Speaking of the 2 stairs, we hired more of a local structural engineering firm called Kyler Engineering to look at those 2 stairs. Is there anything we could do to fix those stairs, even as an interim basis, just to get the stairs open? That report is available on our website. Both of them are structurally damaged, as I guess I'm the first one who said, let's close them. The structural engineering expert concurred. I wish I remember. One of them is very, very damaged, significant damage that's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. So that's going to be up for a while. The other one, we're talking with a local contractor for an informal bid. We're getting quotes for I can't remember if it's 10 North or 12th. It's one of, I keep getting
The 12th is the wooden one, totally.
They're both wooden. They're both wooden ones.
Really?
They're both
Yeah, I
structurally
thought the other one
damaged.
had some rocks.
One is very seriously damaged. It needs a lot of work. The other one, we're trying to get a quote to see if we could repair it in time for the next summer season. And that's quite possible, but hopefully we won't have any further damage in this upcoming winter storms. Well, sure.
This one. Are there any conversations with Carmel Cares about working with them? And I know one of the guys on their board, at least at some point, was the guy who had initially done the wooden stairs. I don't know if he's still there, but is there any conversation?
We had lots of conversations.
Okay, not going anywhere?
Okay. Yeah, we had lots of conversations.
Okay.
Okay. It's going to take a long time to fix the stairs. Okay. We also put, very recently we put up signs. We can pass it around if you want. It just explains that it's not willy-nilly, we just close the stairs because we want you to walk further. These are structurally damaged stairs, so if you want us to pass it around, a little show and tell.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Show and tell? So that's it for capital projects, and then...
I've got a graphic designer for you, Bob.
Good. Climate committee stuff, I want to take a moment, maybe I'm stealing Mary's thunder, but I wanted to reiterate where we are with the coastal engineering study. A quick recap, thank you. A quick recap, phase one, the commission saw all 4 reports of phase one, which was the condition of the coastal infrastructure. It's about going on 2 years ago now. It was the beach sand movement, how the sand goes offshore and then it comes back on. It was the beach change analysis, the short term and the long term, how it's going to change. And there was a vulnerability assessment of all the other infrastructure along the shore. So that phase one was done. It was presented here, it was presented to the climate committee, it was presented to the city council. That phase is done. Phase two, more recently, we got a $500,000 grant from the Coastal Commission. That project now is really starting to pick up steam. It's getting momentum. They prepared, under Mary's guidance, prepared a community engagement plan, which is very comprehensive. That was submitted to the Coastal Commission for their approval. A spin-off of that is the community survey regarding what to do about the beach to adapt to climate change. That survey was, I think I mentioned it last month, I believe next month, November, that would be a topic for next month. Here's a draft of the survey. It's been vetted out, but we're still wanting to get commission's input on that. So that's coming. A couple other things that this phase two is doing. There was an economic analysis technical memorandum in regards to the value of the beach, the number of visitors that come, where they're coming from. We got cell phone data records. I don't know how they do that, but they did. So because some economic valuation of the visitors and the value of the beach. And then they're compiling adaptation strategies. What are we going to do? What? That's so funny.
Well, the fact that they know we're on the beach all the time, right? Like, I always have my phone down there with me, so.
So they're looking at adaptation strategies. Jetties is probably not going to be a real worthwhile thing, but maybe it's a possibility of things we're looking at. Replenishment of sand is, my guess, is probably one of the most likely things, at least in the short term. Mary is saying that Southern California, especially in the wider beaches, they're going to just keep pushing sand out there as the sea level rises to put more and more sand. Ours is a little bit more challenging because we have a wide beach now. It washes out a lot in the winter. Plus, we need the very good quality white sand, which is not readily available. So that's where that project is at. And then probably this time next year, we'll be preparing a local coastal program amendment. Maybe you could do the Carmel Forest Master Plan at the same time. 2 for 1, Mary.
Yeah, nothing else to do.
Work your way out of a job, I guess. Okay, that's that for climate. I think Justin stole my thunder and volunteers. And then a couple of miscellaneous things. Good news, we selected a candidate for the environmental analyst at long last to help Mary. Really high caliber candidate who's accepted the position, so they're doing a background check and they hopefully start maybe beginning of November, plus or minus. So that's really good news. You'll meet this person maybe next month. Mary's also been looking at the possibility, this is kind of more of a long-range thing, possibility of upgrading the post and rail cable within the North Dunes. Okay, so right now, we just recently did the cedar post and rail fencing on San Antonio and Ocean. Now, within the North Dunes, we just have the cable railing protecting the sensitive habitat. And, dogs continue to crawl right under it, or it gets knocked over, or it's wind or whatever. So it's becoming higher maintenance. So the thought is, gosh, let's upgrade the post and cable to more of the split rail fencing. So we're looking at the feasibility of that. Assuming that goes forward, it will come to the Forest and Beach Commission to get your blessing, as well as the Planning Commission because of the sensitive habitat. So that's.
Please look at the boardwalk also, because I'm on that boardwalk every day, and there's like loose boards.
We know about, yeah.
It's not, it's.
That was in our meeting this week.
That was our meeting yesterday, yes.
It's going to become a deferred maintenance program real quick.
Rob said it's on the list, and they're going to be, they're on it.
That happens every year, so yes, we check it anyway, yes. Okay, but thank you.
Yeah, there's boards.
Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was, working with Carmel Cares and others, we're getting a lot of dead seals on the beach.
Yeah, there was one a couple days ago.
In fact, we had, I think, six in a row. The pine cone tonight, tomorrow morning, we'll probably have an article, we expect an article about all the dead seals. It's not just in Carmel, it's all over the peninsula, it's all over the state, as far as we can tell. Okay, so.
Well, their heads were bitten off too, and their tails were bitten off.
Oh, lovely.
I saw 2 of them on Monday, and your guys are out burying them.
Yeah, we're burying them. So there was some talk a few months ago about, do we need a permit from NOAA, the Federal National Oceanic and something administration? We looked into it. No, we don't need a permit.
Okay.
And we don't even need to call them necessarily, as long as we call the Moss Landing Marine Laboratories. Especially, and I think they're more concerned about anything that's suspicious, a suspicious death, was it shot, was it, was it still alive, that type of thing.
Are we holding
So I'll
up
pay
the
more
road
attention to
guys?
that. And then we have to wait 48 hours before we can bury it. So even if we're notified, we have to wait 48 hours before we can actually bury it. So anyway, Mary wrote to Pine Cone today to explain what we can and cannot do. So.
But several of those seals last week, there were several on the beach for a week. Like, they were there for, we had several that were there
Do you
for
want to talk
a while.
about why they're on there so long?
We were originally told that we needed to get a permit. The Moss Landing Marine Laboratories person had said that we needed to contact NOAA. So we did some research to see if we actually needed a permit, because they had said, the city shouldn't be burying those. But we looked into it. We can bury it, but we have to wait 48 hours to give them enough time, the stranding networks, to come out and do any kind of investigation. So, so they agreed to 48 hours, and so once we get a report, then we'll put it in our list of things to do, to, and get Public Works crew out there. So, that's
okay.
Hopefully within the next month, you'll see at the Devendorf Park restrooms, you'll see a new decorative water fountain that's ADA compliant. This is a park. You guys are doing parks, right?
Which park now?
Devendorf Park.
Oh.
You oversee the parks and the forest. We're going to fix up.
You should put one at the
This is
tennis
thrilling.
courts.
This is thrilling stuff.
What are you going to do when you retire, Bob?
Stand-up comedy, I guess. And last but not least, we ordered and we just received a new 5-yard dump truck. If you see this shiniest big dump truck in the world driving around town, that's our new truck. Did you see it?
No, I'd like to see it.
It has a backup camera this time. It's bright white and black in the back. It has an automatic tarp, so we can cover things so tree branches won't fall out flying as we drive down the street. So it's really nifty. It's a lot better. Our last dump truck, which died 2 years ago, could only go in reverse. And and we sold it for $3,550. And I asked Rob, they know it can only go in reverse. He said, yes, we know, they are aware. So that completes.
Look for it at the Halloween parade.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, the new one will be in the Halloween parade with our electric street sweeper. And hopefully all of you will be there. That's all I have unless you have any questions.
Okay. That should be,
I think we're done. We'll follow up with a date on the special meeting for the matter on Fifth and Carpenter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we'll have to get a hold of the attorney.
And with that, we're adjourned. Okay.
Okay.
Let's have a phone call with him.
You got some?
You have to kind of schedule it.
I know.
Not always-
Let's have a phone call. Let's not have him write a written opinion.
Oh, he has to. He has to, every time. That's his thing.
Yeah.
But we can start with a phone call, and then he'll say, okay,
Let's have a
yeah.
phone call with him first.
He typically says, okay, great, I'll follow up on the written opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. I just think that it sounds like we're having
Yeah, so
I get it. I get
You're
it.
scanning on
I totally
something,
get it.
especially if it goes.
You know, I could have been
Yeah,
myself.
but I think what it speaks to the need for clarity in this, more clarity in the city ordinance. Yeah.
Well, the other places.
That's why I was hoping we didn't have to.
I
Ask the
know, I
question.
understand.
And Sarah kind of put me on the spot.
But it
Well,
didn't
we don't
go,